And welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of Thursday, January 22nd. At this time, I would kindly ask that everyone stand so we can pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd ask that we all remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of our soldiers, past and present. Thank you. All right, so at this time, I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded by Dartmouth Community Media, and also that our next Board of Appeals meeting, well, I don't have it here. So when's our next Board of Appeals meeting? Because usually announce those. Or is that something that's still up in the air? We're going to make the determination at the end.
February 12th, I'm sorry.
Okay, are you certain before I announce it?
I am very certain.
Well, we'll announce the next scheduled meeting. We normally do that at the beginning of the meeting. However, our schedules have been sort of up in the air based on these 40B projects that we have, so I will announce that further along. So at this time, I'm going to...
February 12th.
It's the 12th?
February 12th.
All right, so I can announce to everyone at home and the viewers here, viewers at home and also the people here, that the next scheduled meeting will be February 12th at 5:00 p.m. here at Town Hall. Now, moving on to the public hearings portion of tonight's meeting. The first case we have, it's a continued case. It's variance case ZAV 25-14. It was continued from January 8th, 2026. The petitioner was Attorney Michael McVeigh. The owner is Martin Dartmouth Realty, LLC. Subject property is 0 State Road, known as map 53, lot 2. It's located within the general business partial aquifer zone 3 district. The matter was legally advertised prior, and we waived the reading of the abutters list at the last meeting. In this case, the petitioner is seeking a variance to construct an Audi Volkswagen dealership on the site with proposed parking encroaching on the required 40 feet from street line to 19.5, and is seeking relief from 375-24.3C, subpart 2, parking facility setbacks. Parking facilities shall meet the following minimum setbacks of 40 feet from the street. The property is located at 0 State Road in the general general business partial aquifer zone 3 district, and we've already identified it. We've already read into the record the last meeting, the concerns from other town boards, and also the denial letter. We had, I believe, we've had public comment. We had some public comment from some of the abutters with questions. Some had concerns, which we were able to, or either the petitioner was able to address. But given that it is a public meeting, I will always provide people an opportunity to be heard. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to be heard to either speak in favor or in opposition to this request? All right, I can report to the viewers at home that there's no one here in the audience that wants to be heard. I believe we also had some dialogue with the petitioner in which we indicated that if we were to move forward, we would ask them to put together a decision, which they have, a proposed findings for us, which I'm reviewing. And at this time, I would move forward to, we're not going to close the public hearing. I'm just going to read this now, and we'll close the public hearing later, as usual. Mm-hmm. All right, so the board has determined the following. The subject property at 0 State Road is located within the general business district and partially within the aquifer zone 3 district. The property measures approximately 37.7 acres, which is 1,642,212 square feet. The subject property will be served by town water and town sewer. The property is currently vacant with no structures or improvements on the site. The petitioner, PRM Auto Holdings, LLC, is seeking a variance from Article 18, Section 375-24.3C2, parking facility setbacks, in order to construct the Audi Volkswagen dealership on the property. The parcel is burdened by its unusual oblong shape with its shorter dimension along State Road. In addition, a wetland area partially bisects the site. As a result of the property's atypical configuration and the location of the wetlands, development is forced closer to State Road. The proposed setback from the road to the parking facility is consistent with other automobile dealership parking facilities located along State Road. The proposed use is subject to site plan review by the Dartmouth Planning Board. The board, after hearing all the parties and concerned residents, finds that the proposed setback from the road to the automobile dealership parking facility will not create substantial detriment to the public good or substantially derogate from the intent and purpose of the bylaw. The requested variance meets the statutory requirements for granting a variance pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 10. The four-prong test, the first prong is there are circumstances related to soil, shape, and topography that especially affect the subject property that do not generally affect the zoning district in which the structure or land is located. Our reasoning and rationale would be that the property has a unique shape and topographical conditions that make it difficult to achieve the required setback for the parking facility without pushing the project footprint further north into protected wetland areas. Subpart 2, a literal enforcement of the provisions of the bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner. A literal enforcement of the zoning bylaw would require the project footprint to be shifted further north into a wetland area, increasing mitigation costs and resulting in greater environmental disturbance. Subpart 3, desirable relief may be granted without detriment to the public good. Desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good because the proposed setback will be generally in line with the character of other large commercial projects on State Road. And subpart 4, the variance will not nullify or substantially derogate from the intent or purpose of the bylaw. Our rationale is that the use of the property for an automobile dealership is consistent with the purpose of the zoning district in which it is located. We have the usual conditions where they got to get all necessary permits and approvals from other town boards and agencies, and also they're going to need site plan review, and they are well aware, I'm sure, that there are some conservation issues. I think there was some, speaking of a notice of intent that needed to be filed prior to at the last hearing. So, gentlemen, at this time, I would call for a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion that we close the public hearing for variance ZAV 25-14.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. So, having read the proposed rationale and the proposed findings into the record, what's your pleasure, gentlemen?
I make a motion that we approve variance ZAV 25-14 with the findings and the conditions as stated.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. Congratulations, Mr. Markey.
Good luck.
Yes. All right, moving on to the next matter that's on tonight's meeting agenda. It's also a continued case. It's variance case ZAV 25-12 was continued from January 8, 2026. The petitioner is Mr. Paul Cusson, who's also the owner. The subject property is 1 Cleveland Street, also known as map 117, lot 169, and it's located in the general residence district. We've read the legal ad, and we've waived the notice of the abutter, not notice, excuse me, the reading of the abutters into the record. We've waived that previously at the last hearing. And in this case, the petitioner is seeking a variance to construct a one-story addition, 9.5 by 27.7, 9.5 by 14.2, and by 14, kitchen extension, and a 9.5 by 11 porch extension encroaching setbacks, encroaching into the required line of sight triangle and exceeding the maximum amount of lot coverage. A variance is required for the following: to encroach setbacks from the required 20 feet to 6.7 on Cleveland Street, a variance to construct a visual barrier in the intersection site triangle setback, and a variance to exceed lot coverage from 50.9 to 54%. They're seeking relief on the Article 375-10.4D setbacks, Subpart 2, intersection site triangle setbacks, 3B, and Article 375-10.4F, which is percentage of lot coverage. So, gentlemen, I don't know if you remember this one, but this was a matter in which Mr. Cusson was before us. There was a concern that I had raised. He had told us that he'd be willing to cut back, and he was going to provide us a plan. Right. We continued it. I know he was a little disappointed that we weren't able to move forward. However, I was not able and not willing to do so without having a finalized plan, a revised plan, and also the ability to go by and look at the property. I can report that I did go by and look at the property. When we were here last, we were presented with a photo that showed basically some stakes with either strings or some markings off of an area that would protrude, and I guess to the best that he could, represent what the encroachment would be into this setback area. That wasn't there when I went there yesterday, as a matter of fact. I went there around lunchtime. I was hopeful that we were going to get something here today, either a plan or maybe a request for a continuance. But did we get a request for a continuance, either telephone call, email? Nothing. All right.
Well, I think Mr. Cusson was leaving the state or something, going to Florida, so I'm not sure. But I think his engineer was at the meeting, and I was under the impression that he was going to come. Yeah. So I'm not sure what happened, but I think I think I suggest that we continue the hearing. I just give them the.
It's
I mean,
always been a practice, at least that
Right.
I've been, you and I have been on this board, we always give people
You never
one,
know what
one
circumstances are and all that, so I think it's being fair.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know, if you want to shoot him an email or something, just to see, I mean,
So the only thing is this, it's been past practice for us to always grant
Right.
one continuance.
Yeah.
I don't want to depart from that.
No.
I treat everybody the same.
We never
Even
know.
though
I mean,
I don't
we
know
don't know.
why, so we give him the benefit of any doubt, okay?
and it's not real, I mean, at the last meeting, he agreed that he was going to cut the deck to meet the setback within the triangle, and I think, I don't think it's an issue, so.
If you recall, he asked us to erase it from the plans,
Yeah,
and
no, I agree
we
on that,
said we
but-
would not erase it. He had to come in with a new plan, and his engineer said
right.
he would put it together and appear tonight.
Okay. So, based on that, again, that just argues that we shouldn't grant any continuance because we didn't get anything. So not only he was aware, but his engineer was aware. But, again, it's always been the practice of this board,
with me.
and I don't think we need to depart
Give 'em one
on
chance.
this. Basically, one opportunity, let them know that we're going to continue it. Now, it may not be the next hearing date, it might be the one beyond that, but
Right.
let's see what we got for congestion here on our schedule.
I don't even know what to do.
Let me ask you this, so what do we have on for the, let's look at the 12th. What do we have on for the 12th at
We
5
have
o'clock?
Hawthorne, oh, I'm sorry.
At 5
We
o'clock.
have Zero State Road, we have 576.
Well, hold on, did you say State Road?
Yeah, what is that one? I have a mind block, that one
Oh,
is.
that's something
That's
new?
it.
Yeah, I believe so.
Beside the
I can go
Audi?
check it out. I can go check it out. And then 8 Bonnet Court, that was the one that, they didn't show up, remember?
Arnold Court.
Bonnet Court.
Oh, they filed again?
Yes, they refiled,
Oh,
because
is that the
you
gentleman with the-
denied
Is that the gentleman with the
without-
deck?
No, this is
Yeah, I remember.
down off of Clarence Street, I think, down the village, down
didn't
Elm
show
Street
up.
area. And that, exactly, they
You
didn't,
only have 2 on for that day?
it'd be
F5?
3,
This would be 3 if we put it on?
that would be 4.
Oh, so we got 3 on, okay. What about the next date?
That is the 26th.
Okay, February 26th, and what's
I
on?
have 2 right now.
2? We'll put it on for the 26th. So I'll entertain a motion, gentlemen.
Talking about the 26th of February.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
you're back, Alan. Right.
No, I'll be here.
Okay.
Okay, why am I thinking you're missing? Which one is that?
I'm missing the next meeting, but
Oh,
not,
okay, the 12th, okay,
Yeah.
the 12th, okay.
Where we
Hold on. The time constraints on this, I'm worried.
Well, we have to send them a continuance form.
Oh, but if he,
but
hold
it
on,
won't be
if he
over
doesn't sign it,
before-
if he
no,
doesn't
right.
sign it by the 26th, is that going to put us beyond that?
I have to go through the dates when it was submitted and whatnot.
Concerned about that. Because I don't want him to be, I don't want it to be
Right.
granted without having
Constructive, will
a
be
constructive
constructive,
allowance.
Can we can,
How about we take a recess? We'll take a quick recess. I'll let you take a look at
All right,
that.
why don't we do the minutes, and then we'll take a recess, and then
Absolutely.
I'll go.
Yeah, we could do that as well. Okay. So let's move on to the minutes that we need to approve. All right, gentlemen, so the first one we have on, so we're on to the administrative portion of tonight's meeting. It's review and approve of administrative minutes of October 30th, 2025.
I have nothing to add.
I have nothing to add, Mr. Chair. So,
I make a motion that we approve the administrative minutes of October 30th, 2025 as written.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. Next is review and approval of variance ZAV 25-10, 8 Barno Court, was denied without prejudice.
yeah, this is the one that they
This is the one you're talking
refile,
about.
yeah.
They didn't show up.
Okay. I have nothing to add on this. I make a motion that we approve the minutes of variance ZAV-25-8 for 8 Bono Court, which was denied without prejudice as written.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. Next is review and approval of comprehensive permit ZCMP-25-2, minutes of October 30th, 2025, 498 Old Westport Road.
I have nothing, Mr. Chair.
I have nothing to add.
Neither do I.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of October 30th, 2025 for comprehensive permit ZCMP-25-2 as written.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. Next is review and approval of administrative minutes of November 13, 2025.
I have nothing to add.
Neither do I.
Nothing.
I make a motion that we approve the administrative minutes of November 13th, 2025 as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. Next is review and approval of use variance ZAV 25-11 Fons Corner Road.
Phone's going on. Let me see which one this is. I have nothing, Mr. Chair.
I have nothing to add to that.
Was this one that I recused myself on?
No, Phone's Corner, was that the gas station? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's the one. No, that's not the one. All right.
I make a motion that we approve the use variance minutes for ZAV-25-11, 20, yes, Fons Corner Road, as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Last but not least, review and approval of variance ZAV 25-4 Fons Corner Road, continued to December 11, 2025.
Which one is this one? This is the AV, this Phone's Corner?
Which one? Thatcher Street, the one. Which one are we gonna?
This is
Corner
25-4
Road.
Fons Corner Road, continued to December 11, 2025.
That's a typo. It's got to be a typo.
I think the date,
I got a November 13th I'm holding.
I got November 13th here too, but
Is it ZAB 25-4?
I got
Yes.
ZAV 25-4.
Okay, that's what we should be approving.
All right, and that's the date, so I'm going to restate it. Review and approval of variance case ZAV 25-4 Fons Corner Road,
Okay.
dated November 13, 2025.
Yes.
Number 13,
Yes,
2025.
We'll continue.
that's what I have here.
Okay, yep.
And this was, the subject property was 25 Thatcher Street.
I make a motion that we approve the variance minutes for variance petition ZAV-25-4 for 25 Thatcher Street as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. All right.
Well, you need to go back to,
Yes, I think we're going to take a short recess,
Okay.
so that you can check on that before we continue.
Yeah,
If
sure,
it's going to be the
yeah.
12th or the, whatever, because I want to make sure we don't, the date, because I know he filed this a long time ago, right?
Well, yeah,
But he actually changed plans midway through the process,
so
which
originally-
prolonged the situation.
right,
All right.
it started October 16th, but it didn't get processed until December because of the issues with the different plans that he
okay, well, let's check the
submitted.
dates and see if it's,
Just
you
to make
know,
sure.
what do we
Okay.
have, 16?
But also, I mean, I believe, if I email him the continuance form, either he signs it, sends it back, or he'll have his representative, which would be
But if he
fine.
doesn't, what if he doesn't sign it, and then the date that comes up is the 26th, and we're going to have an emergency session on it?
If it's before the 26th, we'll have to meet and act
We'll
on
have
it.
to meet and act on it. We'll act on it by the 12th. That's what we'll end up doing. If they don't get back to us by the 12th, let them know that we're going to have to act on it by
What
the
do you,
12th.
what do we,
So we could do that now, and put it on for the 26th. Or better off just checking the date, just to make sure, okay?
So
Because
before I-
for all I know, for all we know, it could be another week, and if it's another week out, we've got a problem if we continue without him signing that, so.
I will tell you when it's-
All right, you want me to sign this? All right. So let me just, we're just going to take a quick recess, okay? And we now have to go back to variance case ZAV 25-12. This was a case that was previously continued from January 8th of this month. The petitioner is not here, gentlemen, so we've had just some brief discussions as to what date we could actually continue it to. It appears to me from the secretary, she's told me that we could put it on the agenda for February 12th at 5 o'clock, because we only have two other matters on for that evening. So what's your pleasure, gentlemen?
I make a motion that we continue variance ZAV 25-12 to February 12th, 2026 at 5 o'clock.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. All right, so that pretty much wraps up everything that we have for our 5 o'clock session. It is now, I can report, roughly 5:43. Our next session has to do with the comprehensive permits, and that starts at 6 o'clock. We don't want to start that until we have everyone who wants to be present be able to be here for the 6 o'clock hearing. So we're going to go again into a recess until 6 o'clock, where we reopen tonight's meeting to deal with the 40B for Old Westport Road. Okay? Good evening. The Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of January 22nd is back in session. Moving on to comprehensive permit case ZCMP 25-2, which was continued from December 11th of 2025. The petitioner applicant is Robert Lincoln. The owner is Sherbrooke Farms LLC. The subject property is 498 Old Westport Road, also known as map 48, lot 29. Property is located in a single residence B district. The petitioner is seeking a comprehensive permit pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, and the comprehensive permit guidelines to construct 156 units, of which 39 will be affordable units. And the property is located at 498 Old Westport Road. I'm not going to read all of the sections that are applicable to this because they're quite numerous. So this matter, as everyone who's in attendance here tonight is well aware, this matter was previously opened. And I'm going to call upon the representative of the petitioner to explain to us the progress that's been made with the plans or any type of studies of the sciences that they've been undertaking, and how that's been going with our experts, our peer reviewers. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, and good evening, members of the board. My name is Tanya Trevison. I'm with Marioni, Shaughnessy, and Udi, representing the petitioner.
Is that mic on there?
It is. Yeah, closer. Is that better? Yeah? Better? Okay, I'll speak louder. How's that? All right, so tonight is a continuation of the prior hearings. We have Stephen Siragusa from Bowman Engineering, who's going to be presenting on traffic. We have Brian Klingler, who is the head of the environmental group, is going to be providing an environmental review of the property to address some of the concerns that the public has raised about the site. We also have Damian Dimitruk from Conoco Engineering to do a brief presentation on the civil plans for the project. For the civil, the process is kind of flowing right now. The petitioner's experts are responding to Niche's peer review comments. So they've been going back and forth, but we can provide an overview of the
Great.
civil for you. So we have conceptual plans for that.
All right.
So
Since we already have, I guess, the presentation ready on the screen for traffic, is that
Yep.
where we're going to go with this at this
if
point?
it pleases the board, sure.
Yeah.
Unless you want to take anything else first.
No, not at this point. We'll do the
Okay.
traffic. He's already got his computer ready. Let's hear from
Alrighty,
him.
thank you.
All right, good evening. My name is Stephen Saragusa. I'm with Bowman Consulting. We did the traffic engineering for the project. So since we met last time, a lot has happened, and there's been a lot of back and forth with Niche Engineering, who did the peer review. So I just want to briefly run through kind of an overview of what we've done since the last meeting, and kind of just go through a few slides here. So a quick traffic timeline. So the first two were addressed last time. So we did a TIS in October 2024. There was initial peer review done in October of 2025. We then met after that initial peer review was done, and then we had some follow-up with Niche. So we responded to those initial comments in December of 2025. A second peer review was issued in early January of this year, and then we issued a second response to comments in mid-January last week to hopefully address as many of those outstanding concerns as possible. So last time, as part of the October 2024 TIS, we only had one intersection, which was Old Westport Road at Lucy Little Road. As part of the peer review process, we were asked to look at a couple additional intersections, including Old Westport Road at Crossroad and Old Westport Road at UMass Dartmouth. So we went back out and collected new data at all three of those intersections to include those in our study area. We can go back to the site plan in a little bit, but this is a new site plan, which I know Damien will speak to a bit. Our methodology, so as I mentioned, we collected additional data in November of 2025. So what that included was additional turning movement count data at those three intersections during the weekday morning and afternoon peaks. And then we collected 48-hour ATR data along Old Westport Road, which again was a comment from the peer reviewer to kind of get a longer stretch of time rather than the initial 24 hours we did. We did it over 48 hours to try to capture any fluctuation in traffic due to UMass Dartmouth. We updated our crash data to include the newest closed crash data per Mass DOT. And then again, we updated our entire existing condition analysis as well. Again, per to the peer review process, we updated our trip generation comparison. So when we originally did the TIS, there was one edition, the 11th edition of the trip generation manual was the newest. So we provided a comparison with the 12th edition of that same manual, which provides a bit more updated rates. And I know we spoke through it a bit last time. And we actually decided that the October 2024 TIS, actually the 11th edition, provided a bit more of a conservative estimate of trips. So we continue to use that. And again, the peer reviewer acknowledged that that would be the correct way to go. So we updated our trip distribution again per the peer review request. So we did hear last time that traffic along Lucy Little Road, that trips from the site probably would be using Lucy Little Road. So we approximated about 5% of traffic to and from the site using that roadway. And then we also updated our site distance analysis because the site driveway shifted to make it more aligned with Lucy Little Road and make it more of a four-way intersection rather than an offset intersection. So we updated our site distance analysis there. And then again, we updated our capacity analysis to include all of these changes that we put together. So concluding that, again, found there were no significant safety concerns as a result of this project. The site distances, again, meet all of the AASHTO standards. There's minimal delay in queuing anticipated queuing and delay caused by the project. And we've continued to coordinate with Niche to resolve any of these outstanding comments as we move forward. I think the biggest part of this that I wanted to kind of talk about was some of the next steps that are going to be taking place. So as part of this mitigation of this project, going to work with the town to provide some additional signing and striping along Old Westport Road within the vicinity of the project, as well as along Lucy Little Road, specifically some signing and whatnot to kind of reduce speeds and hopefully increase safety along those roadways, because I know that that was a main concern of residents and abutters, and the town as well. We're going to put together a traffic monitoring program. So what that means is post-occupancy, between 6 and 12 months post-occupancy, go out and collect data again at the same intersections and along Old Westport Road, and then identify if there's been any significant changes in volume or safety or anything like that. Again, recollecting crash data. If there is a significant change, coming back, working with the town to see if we can identify any further mitigation along those roadways, and putting together a transportation demand management plan, and again, working with the town to see if there's other ways to reduce single occupancy trips to and from the site, whether that might be a shuttle or something of the sort, to kind of help out, reduce those number of trips that are going to be coming in and out of that driveway during the day. With that, that is kind of just a brief overview of where we are. I'm more than happy to answer any questions I don't know if you would like to go to the next discipline or how you would like to proceed.
I don't know, I'd like to hear from,
Jeff Bandini from Niche is here as well.
excuse me?
Yeah,
What did she say, what?
somebody from Niche is here.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was hopeful,
We'll
yeah, I
hear
see
from
him here. I see, I was hopeful, and then I would allow the audience, if they have any questions, to pose them to him, and then he can provide any type of responses to that.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation.
You're
So at
welcome.
this time, I'm going to call upon our expert to come forward and explain to us what he's been made aware of. Yes, you can come to this podium.
Good evening, everyone, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Again, Jeff Bandini, Senior Project Manager with Niche Engineering. We were the town's peer review consultant on the transportation impact study. So as Steve mentioned, we have a pretty comprehensive timeline of our involvement in this project dating back to October when we first submitted our initial peer review letter, and I've been working with Steve continuously since then to resolve a number of the issues that have been presented both at that initial hearing back in October and that Steve outlined for you this evening. And I'll just walk briefly through Niche's comments and some of the high-level ones that are mostly resolved at this point. Again, we did present a response to comments letter in early January and received a comment letter last week, which we are still working to resolve. I've had some productive conversations with Steve and feel like we are in a good position. So I'll just go through some of those for you this evening. And Steve hit on those in a couple of his slides already. The traffic monitoring program is the biggest one, and then the single occupancy vehicle bullet point was also mentioned as well. There was a couple other items that were traffic engineering related that we wanted to point out prior to the presentation on the site plan, in case during the site plan presentation, the applicant's civil engineer is able to hit on those as well. The first one is we had requested a clarification if MIPA was going to be provided, if the applicant needed to submit to MIPA. From our understanding, there is no state action associated with this project, but I wanted to point out, should that change during this process at all, and MIPA is required, that the applicant work to submit that documentation and coordinate with the town as needed. The second site-related issue was the parking waiver. We had requested as one of our comments that the applicant look at the number of parking spaces that would be generated by the project and number of units based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers publication parking generation, which can be used in tandem with the town's zoning regulation requirements, and that we had requested that the applicant coordinate with the town if a parking waiver is needed. I will also add that if it's the town's point of view that a parking waiver could or should be granted by the slide that talked about the reduction in single occupancy vehicles, that could certainly be addressed as part of the parking waiver as well. A couple other things, the site distance that was discussed. One of our initial recommended modifications to the site plan included shifting the driveway to be located directly across from Lucy Little Road to create more of a four-way intersection with the site driveway and Lucy Little under stop control. Basically, what this would do is sort of minimize the amount of conflict with vehicles turning in and out of Lucy Little Road and the site simultaneously. And if you were to align those driveways, you would have more of a geometrically sound design. But with that comes some potential concerns about vehicles either exiting the site or traveling north on Lucy Little Road and kind of sort of traveling directly into either the site or Lucy Little. So one of our comments was to make sure that the applicant was coordinating with the town to make sure that the geometric design or modifications to that intersection and or the signage and striping related to that was up to engineering standards in terms of, sort of minimizing that potential conflict. So a lot of these comments have been resolved. One that we're still working with the applicant and the applicant's team on is one of our comments related to the pedestrian infrastructure at the relocated site driveway, which again, as I mentioned, would be located directly across from Lucy Little Road. I don't know if it's beneficial to sort of zoom in on this slide, or if you want me to kind of come back after the applicant's engineer makes his presentation, but I can give you sort of a high-level overview of our comments at this point. So basically, the site is located on the north side of Old Westport Road, which is directly opposite from the side that UMass Dartmouth is on, that sees a lot of pedestrian and bicycle activity. And there's also a sidewalk located on the south side of Old Westport Road as well. So, by understanding the site design and reasonably so, the applicant has presented pedestrian accommodations to provide pedestrian ramps and crosswalks from the site side on the north side of Old Westport to the south side where, as I mentioned, the existing sidewalk exists, and the side that UMass Dartmouth is on. So part of our commentary was mostly related to the design and location of that pedestrian infrastructure. Right now, the site plan is showing a crosswalk on both the west and east sides of Lucy Little Road, which we would agree that providing enhanced pedestrian infrastructure at both of those locations is sound. However, we want to make sure that the ramp design on the south side, which is owned by the town, is designed to Americans with Disabilities Act and Massachusetts Architectural Access Board regulations in terms of its ramp design with respect to running and cross slope and things like that, such that that's to the standards that have been outlined by those two entities. And because the crosswalks are proposed proximate to the intersection with Lucy Little, we requested that the applicant work with the town to either redesign the existing ramps on both corners of the Lucy Little Road intersection, or come up with some sort of way that the applicant can ensure that if those existing ramps are damaged during construction, that they would be replaced in kind. So we're actively working with the applicant's team on that in determining what kind of ramps those are going to be and where those are located. I also point out that the applicant's crosswalk that they're shown and potential pedestrian ramp is located either approximate to or not quite at the walkway of the abutter that's located on the southwest side of that intersection. So we would request that the applicant's team work with that abutter to make sure that the ramp design is coordinated effectively with that abutter to make sure that it is either at the end of the existing walkway or slightly offset, depending on the pleasure of that abutter, and obviously based on coordination with the town as well, since that's town-owned property. So that's what I have for you this evening. I'd be happy to take any additional questions on Niche's peer review or any other questions that may be presented to the board this evening.
All right. I'll follow up with you later with regard to what remains outstanding, but at this point in time, I'm going to ask if any of our board members has any questions as to what's been done, or the analysis that's been done at any part of the traffic.
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
Attorney Newman?
I just have a question. Where you line up Lucy Little and the entrance, are we talking four-corner stop?
So it would be a two-way stop control. Basically, the Lucy Little Road would be maintained under stop control, and the site would be under stop control. And Old Westport Road would continue to function as it does now. It would not be a four-way stop. It would be a stop for the minor approaches only.
Lucy Little is already on the stop control now.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so it'd be
Yep.
one additional stop control.
There's no stop sign there. Spots.
Okay, hold on. You'll have an opportunity. 1 sec. So your understanding is that it is, that's fine. We'll take comment on that. Is there anything else, Attorney Newman?
Through the board, do you mind if I respond? Do you want to?
Well, I was going to allow people to speak if they want to come forward, and then you could answer the questions.
Okay.
But first, we want them to identify themselves. So I'm going to set some ground rules as to
Sure,
how we're
no,
going to conduct this.
understandable, yep.
And then obviously, they want to have an opportunity. We're going to grant them that opportunity.
Absolutely.
And today, we're going to talk about traffic for now, anyway.
Okay.
So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to come forward who has any questions or concerns, you have to address them to the board first, and then we will be able to call upon our consultant, or maybe even the petitioner's consultant, to elaborate on any of the concerns that you may have. So at this time, we're going to open the matter up for public comment. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to come forward, please identify yourself by stating your name and your address, and then whatever question or comment you'd like to make. There's a gentleman in the back that's raised his hand. Come on up.
Evening. Jim Costa, Old Westport Road. The questions are for this gentleman over here.
All right, but you have to direct them to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
When did you do the most recent traffic study? Because school's been out of session. I just wondered if he was over there last week. And the same thing with the 6-month evaluation. Will he be doing it when the school's in session? That's probably the most busiest time. There's no buses on the route, so
What'd you say about buffer zone, sorry?
no bus.
Sorry.
Sort of buses, whatever, yeah. So it's not on the route. I'm just wondering how these people are going to be walking up and down the road, I guess.
Okay.
The sidewalk going south from the entrance, will there be a sidewalk going in there? Because if it is, it's going to be a boardwalk, because where the guardrails are, there's no land. The owner excavated right to the town line, right to the road.
Okay. So are you saying that the guardrails are where there would be a sidewalk?
Where the guardrails are going south from the entrance, there's no sidewalk there now, or no existing sidewalk.
Okay.
And if there were one to go in there, it would be difficult. It would have to be a boardwalk, because the previous owner excavated right to the road. And just one other question, what provisions are you making for e-bikes? I can just see them flying out of there.
I didn't hear you, so provisions for what?
E-bikes, electric bikes.
Oh,
Those are my questions, thank you.
so we're going to take these one by one. First, I guess, when was the most recent traffic study?
So we collected data in November of 2025, early November 2025, before Thanksgiving break, when schools were still in session.
Okay. What about this 6-month review? I don't know how much reliance can be placed on this, because once the project is already built, we already have the problem. How do we fix it after? It's sort of we should have built a better mousetrap sort of situation, but I want to hear from you what your understanding of how that would work.
So that 6 to 12 month period gives us a little bit of kind of flexibility there to make sure that we're collecting data, again, when schools are in session and everything like that. But what that does is it gives the town an opportunity to look at that data once it gets submitted, and then determining if anything, especially with speeds or maybe delays at the intersections, what the applicant might be able to do to help mitigate some of that, whether that's some additional striping or some signage or something to that effect, to kind of help mitigate those delays or the increases in speed or safety, things of that nature.
Okay. What about the situation about no sidewalk existing? He's referring to the south. The sidewalk there runs east and west, but I guess he's saying on the south, I believe he's saying the south side of Old Westport Road?
So
Excuse me, can you do that again, sir?
This is the area here I'm asking about, sidewalk over here. This is
where
the guardrails are.
So-
It's been excavated right to the town, right to the road.
All right, so it's the north side of Old Westport Road?
to the west of the driveway. Okay.
Yes.
So, as of right now, and I can let Damien speak to more of the site side of things.
Okay.
But I think it's more just connecting to the sidewalk from the site to the south side of Old Westport Road. Extending, reconstructing the sidewalk to the east of the site, all the way to the property line. But I don't believe there is a plan to construct sidewalk to the west of the new driveway. But again, I will let Damien speak a bit more to that.
Okay, and is that because they're not expecting a lot of traffic foot traffic coming from that area?
Right, it'd be more probably towards UMass, Dartmouth, and into that area.
And I think the last one is any provisions or any type of consideration that's being had for e-bikes?
Not to my knowledge, again, when it comes to kind of site construction and EV charging and all of that, I'll let kind of Damien speak.
But I
to-
think the concern from the gentleman is more about the flow of traffic and not necessarily some of the amenities, whether or not that's been taken into consideration. I don't believe that there's a traffic lane on that roadway. I mean, a bike lane, I should say. I don't believe that there's a bike lane
There is
on
not,
that
there is a
roadway.
striped shoulder, but there is not a bicycle lane,
There's
a
not a bike-
designated bicycle lane, correct.
Okay. All right. Is there any other comment that you can provide us on anything that was elaborated, that you have any, you feel that there's an inconsistency with your understanding of it in relation to how the gentleman's presented it to us?
No, not at all. The only thing I'll add is part of the traffic monitoring program. That's why we wanted to highlight a 6 to 12 month occupancy is so that in case we came back and said 6 months, and 6 months happens to fall when school is not in session, gives us some flexibility to work with the town to make sure that that traffic monitoring program is conducted at a time that is consistent with what the town wants to see, and it gives us the ability to see the data that we're looking for, both from a capacity and safety perspective.
But, with all due respect to the science, right, what can be done after it's already there? And what enforceability do we have, or does the town have, to actually make any modifications? Because if anything is going to be needed there, I would think it's going to be considerably expensive. And if it's considerably expensive, people run. So what's your experience in that?
Well, basically, I mean, that's why we're here now, is to make sure that we get to a point where we're comfortable with the site, and that we basically recommend the traffic monitoring program as sort of a safeguard, right? Like, we're going through our methodology, right? And the process that we see both from the applicant's standpoint and the response to comments standpoint. We've now provided 2 letters that highlights a lot of our concerns with respect to traffic. And our consideration is that we've incorporated a lot of our concerns. And the applicant has provided responses to those concerns with, aside from the one that we're still addressing. However, the traffic monitoring program basically safeguards us in case there is a particular need for something down the road in terms of after occupancy that we did not reasonably foresee is part of this process. So when we say capacity, right, I don't foresee this being an issue, but if there is a possibility of there being like a 4-way stop there, if the traffic numbers were to dictate this, and I'm not saying there is, because given the numbers, that's far off, but in a different situation, that could potentially be a case where we would say something to the applicant like, you could look at making additional improvements at this location. I think the bigger potential issue is regarding safety, right? We talked last time about MassDOT having closed data that is a couple of years old now at this point, because MassDOT goes through all of their data and they check it and they recheck it, and they can't finalize it until everybody's signed off on it. So if there's other data that either MassDOT gets or the town gets that says, hey, there needs to be additional improvements here that we did not foresee as part of the site plan process. We've talked about site distance, we've talked about vegetation clearing, we've talked about signing, striping, reducing speeds, and all of that. So basically this conversation that we're having is actively aimed at making sure that there is nothing needed. However, that traffic monitoring program safeguards us in case that is not the case.
Thank you. Does somebody want to come up?
Good evening. My name is Ruggiero Duarte. I live at 7 Gifford Avenue. I guess I have 2 questions. My first one would be why the studies were stopped at Cross Road. There's plenty of traffic that is dealt with cutting across Greystone and Summit and Gifford due to the school overflow, heading down Old Westport Road. So that's my first question. And my second one is, why are we entertaining a stop at this proposed intersection instead of a stoplight? Because I'm just curious. And that's it. Thank
When
you.
you say, hold on, just for clarification, when you say a stop sign, why are we just entertaining a stop? You want a stoplight to be somewhere, a traffic control light? You want it to 4-way traffic control light? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm wondering,
Why?
has
Okay.
that been explored? Is there a problem with that? I just want to hear some things to that effect. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Those are 2. Let's start with the first one. Why were the studies stopped at Cross Road?
Sure, so that was in response to the initial peer review, is collecting data down on the east side of, east of the site there. When it comes to the intersections that should be included in a traffic study, typically the normal is about 5, if you're adding about 5% of traffic to an intersection, or 100 trips per hour to an intersection, which we certainly do not meet in this case, then that intersection should be included. So as you get further and further out and the distribution of trips kind of goes east, west, north, south, obviously the number of trips kind of dissipates. So Cross Road is probably at the tail end of the study area we should be including, which is why initially we only had that one intersection, just because the number of estimated trips wasn't high enough given the distribution anywhere else. But that was really in response to the peer review, is making sure we got those intersections.
Okay. The second question was, why we're not exploring a four-way traffic control?
Traffic light.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
traffic light.
So like a full traffic signal.
Yes.
Honestly, it just would not meet the warrants of a traffic signal through the MUTCD.
It would actually probably work against things, right?
Right, because now you're stopping mainline traffic, and obviously you would increase safety at that point. That is obviously when you can stop traffic and pedestrians, especially for pedestrians. But I think in general, it just would not meet any of the warrants, and I think it would actually hinder traffic along Old Westport Road.
Okay. Is there anyone else? That gentleman, I'm sorry, Amy had spoken earlier, but you're next.
Jack Lyons, 9 Strawberry Lane. My question is to the board. What type of protections are going to be put in, or controls will be put in for off-site parking? This site right now is negative in parking spots for the potential numbers of cars at the site. So how are we going to prevent parking on Old Westport Road, and more importantly, Lucy Little Road? Lucy Little Road's a historic scenic byway within the town. It's one of the original streets. It's very narrow. You get off-site park, or you get on-street parking on Lucy Little, it's now a one-lane road. How are we going to prevent this?
Next?
That's it.
Okay. So Mr. Saraguso, is that who it is?
I'm trying to understand, I guess, a response to, so we put together some parking analysis as part of the peer review of, as Mr. Bandini was saying earlier, about looking at the parking generation of the site. Again, through ITE, which does the trip generation manual, they also have a parking generation manual for similar sites to understand what that parking demand might look like. There are, I believe, 267 parking spaces on site. And as part of and then let me find the exact numbers that the numbers would give us here, so I'm not misspeaking. But it certainly is a lesser number than 267 is what the 85th percentile of demand would be for the site based on the number of units. Similar to, as we were talking about last time, this isn't just a parking demand rate for every single potential site, whether that be retail or residential or restaurant, whatever it might be. It is very specific to the land use, which is an apartment complex of this size. So that is where the rate comes from. So it is very similar sites that this is taken from.
Do you support that position?
Excuse me. I do, and that's part of why one of our comments had mentioned the potential parking waiver, and potentially the applicant putting together a transportation demand management program, which was mentioned in Mrs. Saragusa's slide that talked about, I don't know if you want to pull that up for additional context. I know there was a lot of language on that particular slide, so I just want to make sure that the board and the folks can understand. Basically, What that does is it looks for ways that the site operations can reduce single occupancy vehicles. For instance, a shuttle, be that to the newly opened South Coast Rail MBTA stations, which were opened, not even a year ago at this point. And then also UMass Dartmouth being a large sort of employment and student center, if there's folks that reside in this development, which we hope there are, and that want to get to UMass Dartmouth either by, pedestrian or car or something, that there's opportunities for those folks to get to these places without having to own a single occupancy vehicle. And a lot of times we found that to be extremely successful. And then also, providing other ways that there be a transportation demand management, either and I don't want to get too much into the site operations, but if there's some sort of stipend or rental credit or something like that, if you don't have a vehicle on site, or whatever the story may be, depending on how the applicant wants to run the operation. But there are certainly ways that that can be presented in terms to reduce that single occupancy vehicle. So that in turn goes hand in hand with the amount of parking demanded on the site. As far as the parking on Lucy Little, part of our comment, I think it was number 11, was to address the safety along Lucy Little Road and install proper signage, be it a stop sign or install more retroreflective striping or something like that. We could certainly, or have the board condition a installation of no parking signage or something like that that goes hand in hand with that potential safety benefit. Because we do recognize that Lucy Little Road is a narrow roadway. So we don't support there to be site parking along that roadway. So anything that the town could do to sort of prevent that, we would be on board with that decision.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have a question.
Hold on, I promised that lady she'd be next.
Oh, all right.
Oh, you have a question of him, for him?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, so I'll let you ask the question to him.
Okay. What is ITE parking? What's ITE? The acronym, what does that mean?
Institute of Transportation Engineers.
And they put out a manual telling you how many parking spaces should be in a project that has 152 units, is that correct?
It's basically a comprehensive assessment of parking for different uses. So apartment complexes happens to be one of them. As Mr. Saragusa mentioned, like if you go into the manual, you'll see ones on, grocery stores, convenience stores, and it'll tell you typically how many parking spaces are generated by that use. Generally, we rely on.
Stop you a second.
Sure.
There's a
Please do.
table 4 on this comments, and your comments, and his comments, says that for 152 unit low-rise residential, there should be 193 parking spaces, or am I reading that wrong? 242 parking spaces, and they're putting in 267, and you had concerns about that.
I just want to make sure that the board was aware that parking could be an issue presented by either the public or other folks. And that also, the parking generation is separate from the town zoning requirements. So in our reviews, we typically like to have the applicant check the zoning regulations against what ITE says. And if there's no issue with what ITE says, then there's no issue at all. We just want to make sure that the applicant is providing the requested information for comparison purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And what is our bylaw right now? Is it 1.5 per unit, or is it 2 cars per unit?
Do not know off the top of my head, and I apologize for that.
Okay. Well, I should know, but
I should know too. I think,
but I don't remember.
I don't think it's that high.
Yeah, if you want, if you come up.
Yeah,
Just identify yourself,
Get
please.
this resolved here.
All right, hi, Damien Dimitrik, Conoco Engineers and Scientists. I'm here as the site design engineer for Sherbrooke LLC for the project at 498 Old Westport Road. So an introduction, so as far as the parking standard, and this was a comment that we had back and forth with our discussion with Nitch, the town bylaw defines the parking requirement. The standards for this zone are not applicable to this use. You guys do not call out, it's a single resident zone use. We're going in as a comprehensive permit. So therefore, we're getting a waiver from that. An apartment complex doesn't have a specific use requirement associated with that. There's two that could potentially apply. One is a 2 per dwelling unit, but that's for a single-family dwelling unit, a house, right, a home. The other statement is for renting of rooms, but again, that's an assumption of someone renting a room in a home, right? And that's 1 per renter, right? My question that I originally brought up to Niche was there's no definition of what a renter is, because that could potentially apply. And then again, the two per single-family home. And that was a conversation that I was going to bring up at this meeting. It was comment D6 within the Niche, where they, ask us to add calculations based on renters. And my question back to them during our conversations was, what is technically a renter per the definition of the town bylaws? And they mentioned to bring it up to you guys and to ask how you would want it. I would defer personally from the client. The preferred is to go with what the ITE says, what they recommend. My applicant on many of his other 40B projects, a 1.75 ratio is more than adequate. The IT ratio that we saw for this project is a 1.55 ratio. So we're above the parking ratio for what the ITE standards say. With that, and again, just for the numbers that 193 was the 242 was the 85th percentile that Stephen had presented in his portion of the project. So again, we will request a waiver from the bylaw to if there is the 2 parking is how the board would like us to go. If it's the 1 renter, we'd say 1 renter per unit, and then we'd be over for that count as well. So it's that's why we're deferring to the ITE.
Well, at the 1.75, it translates to 273 spots, and you're proposing at this point 267, so we're short 6?
Short, so,
I just did the quick math. 156 units being proposed at 1.75 parking spaces per unit. That translates to 273 units.
okay, so again, the numbers are potentially rounded one way or the other there. It's again, we don't have a regulation that we're hitting there. So we're running with, the 276 was the adequate number of parking spaces that made sense with the layout of the project.
I don't want there to be confusion. I heard 267. Did I miss?
267.
Yeah, you just said 276.
You have it, 267.
I apologize.
267.
267, I apologize. A
Fair
little
enough.
dyslexia.
Continue.
So 267 is the unit count that we have,
Okay.
or the parking space count that we have. I apologize.
I didn't forget about you, ma'am. You can come on up.
Hi, Iris Begley. I live off of Fisher Road. One of my questions was about the parking. I couldn't understand how with 152 units, you don't have at least 2 parking spaces for each one. So I know we've gone a little bit back and forth, but I'm still a little fuzzy on 1.75 parking spaces. How do you determine when you move in whether you get 2 or 1 or 1.5? Seems like there's going to be some type of a parking shortage based on just what I'm hearing here. My other question was around the traffic study. You talked about crossroads and going maybe a little bit further. Well, I live in the opposite direction. I think it should be extended to Beeden Road because there's a lot of traffic off of Old Westport and Old County at that point going on to Beeden. So I don't know if that's been considered at all. And then the other question that I think it also ties into parking was you mentioned a shuttle. And I was just curious, like a shuttle to where? Who's going to be taking a shuttle? What is the expectation around that? If you could get a little bit more information. I think I heard the gentleman behind me send something about UMass Dartmouth. So I guess the expectation is you might have some students living in this property and they might take a shuttle. I'm not sure if that's what the expectation is, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about where people are going to take a shuttle, which would save on single car trips in and out of this property.
Absolutely.
There are 3 points there, if you can address all 3.
We'll start with the parking.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that was somewhat addressed already in terms of the.
It was a little bit, but I agree, it's a little bit fuzzy. It's been fuzzy for me, too. But as well as you can clarify, I guess one of the problems is we don't have a zoning bylaw for this particular area that says, or dictates. I know in the city of New Bedford, it says, in certain districts, it's 1.5
Right.
per unit. That's what the bylaw is.
Right.
We don't have one. We don't have a multifamily bylaw in this town. But continue.
I was just going to piggyback on the methodology that Damian and Steve mentioned was, the calculations with ITE. To me, I mean, that's the town bylaw or guidance, let's call it, in ITE is the best information that we have. And to that end, if that information is not being met, then the applicant should be requesting a waiver from the parking relief. And from our point of view, that could certainly be subsided by providing the TDM measurements, which, is that sort of last two bullets on that screen there in terms of reducing the single occupancy vehicle trips to the site. To the other point about the shuttle locations, I'd mentioned previously it could be to UMass Dartmouth, which is a large employment, student center. The other being it could be to the commuter rail stations, which provide direct access to Boston, which hasn't even been operational for a year. I mean, it opened back in March 2025. The other one, which I didn't mention previously, was there's a lot of shopping centers within the vicinity of the site. I could see a situation where the shuttle could provide an opportunity to get to grocery stores or retail or food service or shopping or something like that that could do a loop to, say, from UMass to the commuter rail station and then come back via shopping. Or maybe there could even be a smaller loop that does just the shopping. Again, it would be the applicant's pleasure to present something like that based on, how much, allocation and resources they'd want to put into something like this in determining, size of the shuttle, frequency of the shuttle, things like that, right? Driver's insurance, all of that plays into that sort of calculation.
Thank you. The next issue.
Did I forget one?
There was one about the parking as well. Oh, you already covered that one, right?
Yes.
Was it the other?
Intersection of Bowman.
Oh, the traffic the other way. Oh, that was to
That's right, Beaton Road.
Saragusa's point. So as far as that intersection not being included, certainly falls within the purview of the intersections that we decided to comment on that would realize 5% of the site trips or greater, or 100, or I think it was 50 trips during a peak hour. So understandably so, we weren't able to include every intersection within a certain radius. We had to look at intersections that were included based on that methodology. And the applicant was able to provide the information that we provided. And not only that, committed to the traffic monitoring program, which again is on this screen as well, which Mrs. Saragusa mentioned and I clarified a little bit earlier.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else? I saw this gentleman first, but you'll be next. Come on up, sir.
Yeah, my name's George Rigo. I live on 5 Glen Street, North Dartmouth, Mass. I'm just curious on the garbage that's coming from this. Is the town going to be responsible, or who's responsible, and where's the trash going to go after it gets picked up?
I think that question would be better posed to the next person that's probably going to come before us, but if he knows, I'll let him answer it.
I think it would be better posed to the next person coming after me.
So we're going to reserve that question.
Okay, and
That's
one
not
more
his
question.
area, that's not his area of what he's actually analyzed on this project. Neither has our expert either.
Okay.
But it is a concern. I think it's a legitimate concern. Anything else?
Yeah, the town of Dartmouth became a town in 1964, in 1664. But it seems like this town is going into a city. They want to make this town into a city. And that's not what this town should be about. I mean, really?
Thank you. There was another gentleman.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Ian McGonigal, Lucy Little Road. A couple of questions. In the traffic study, initially you said there was a 24 or 48-hour monitoring of it. What day was that on? Was that on a Monday, a Saturday, a Friday?
You have to address the questions to me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
So you just want to know when it was done in November?
Well, that's my first question. Yeah, what day was that
What day of
study?
the week?
Yep,
I've
what day?
noticed that they usually pick Wednesdays, but I'm not sure what he picked here, but I'm sure you'll let us know.
That'd be interesting to understand that.
I agree.
Second question is on the parking. We know that there's perhaps a shortage of parking. Will people in the apartment buildings be allowed to have guests? Because that will certainly exacerbate the parking situation as well. at peak hour, so something to consider. And I had a third question. Well, let's start with those, and if I come back to the third question.
All right, so I remember the second one, the first one.
First one was the ATR data.
That's right.
Over 48 hours. So we do those in the middle of the week. So this was Tuesday and Wednesday. Unless a town or a municipality prefers it to be on a weekend for one reason or another, ATR data is typically, and turning movement count data at intersections, done during the middle of the week when traffic is highest. We kind of avoid Monday and Friday, and then weekends, again, unless there's a specific need for it.
Okay.
And then the second was parking with guests. I mean, my response to that would be with the ITE parking generation, it is not only specific, similar to the trip generation, it is not just specific to who is living there, let's say for the residences. It is parking for the site as a whole, whether that be guests or residents. It just looks at parking as a whole and what the demand is for that site. I don't believe it goes into the level of detail of being residents only or if there's guests or visitors. It is for the whole site, so that number is inclusive of probably residents and guests and anybody else who might be visiting that site.
Come on up.
I'm assuming that some of the, Mr. Chairman, I'm assuming some of the units will be occupied by children. There'll be children involved. Where will the children play from a safety concern perspective?
I think that's the next person that comes before
Okay.
us. That's
So
civil.
just thinking about traffic and
No,
coming
no.
out onto Lucy Little Road and all that.
No, but that would be with them. With your question too, next person. Come on up, sir.
Norman De Silva, 523 Old Westport Road. Number one, worst-case scenario, I just want to know, where will overflow parking be allowed? Will you allow parking on Old Westport Road? Is the town going to allow that? How are you going to deal with that? No matter whether you put 150 spaces or 250 spaces, eventually at times it's going to overflow. How are you going to handle that?
Well, I'm being told that they'll do an analysis within 6 months to a year after the project is in place. That may be too long if it becomes.
Yeah,
a
what
more
happens if you
prominent
need more parking places afterwards?
problem. I believe we have a traffic commission in this town. Do we not have a traffic officer? We have a traffic officer who basically decides where signs are gonna be. It used to be Mr. Vieira, but he's retired now. I don't know who's assumed his role. But obviously, if there were concerns of people parking, because it would be, I think it's gonna be very dangerous if anybody parks along Old Westport Road.
Absolutely.
And also Lucy Little Road. So if there were signs that say no parking along that, and we can make that a condition. That's why we can't stop this, but we can put conditions that would minimize the impact that this will have on us as neighbors for all of this. And that's one of the things that I think we should probably put as a condition, that there's not gonna be any traffic, no traffic, no parking. There's not gonna be any parking along the Old Westport Road within a certain number of feet we're not gonna put it along the entire roadway, but a certain number of feet would be tremendously inconvenient as an occupant to be able to legally park your car a half a mile down the road and still walk back. If you get what I'm trying to say.
I understand.
Okay. So that's obviously something that we could consider.
Number two, buses, whether it be school buses or SR, whatever it is, Southeastern Regional Transit buses. Is there facilities in there for the kids to wait for school buses and for the, for SRTA buses, so people are not standing on the road waiting for buses?
That will be probably brought up on with the next individual as to where the location for that is. But we've learned on another 40B project that the school department will not allow for a bus stop on the site. They don't drive in there to go pick up children. And I don't know if that's any safer or not safer, but they will actually require it at the roadway. Is that's your understanding? Yeah.
Sounds crazy.
So hold on one second. We'll have the council.
Yeah, that's, the town administrator received email from the school department confirming that they do not go into private developments. So there will need to be some accommodation along Old Westport Road, adjacent to the entrance. That's a safe waiting area for students.
So we'll address that with the next person as to whether or not, they may already have something on their plan. And it's already taking that into consideration. So I'm not gonna jump the gun on that until we figure out where they're at.
Okay. Number three, have any of these traffic studies taken into consideration all the new buildings going up, like the one across from the Casket Pig, the big housing development there? The other one, I don't know, the one near the ledge? Has that been considered in the traffic evaluations?
I don't believe it is because it's so far removed, but I'll defer to this gentleman to give us an explanation. We can question this methodology all we want. I'll be honest with you, I have a lot of difficulty understanding this methodology, just because it doesn't flow to what I have the capacity to understand. I just don't think it makes sense sometimes. But once they do an analysis for traffic and it's below a certain amount of traffic, they don't go out and go do analysis at other intersections. They stop at a particular intersection because that traffic doesn't exceed what the methodology requires them to actually do any further investigation on, and they basically stand behind. They call it, they've got these acronyms, right? They got the ITE, they got the TDM, they've got them all. And these are people who supposedly around the country have made a determination, and they review this every so often because it was just a new study. There's a new one that came out, I think it came out last fall, that they actually, when they first started this, they were using an old, not methodology, but the old parameters for the methodology, and now they've elaborated further with some new. They call it, I don't know, what edition are you guys on?
12th edition.
The 12th, okay, so we were on the 11th, and now they're on the 12th edition. So I understand that, but I don't think they're gonna go out there, but let's see what he's got to say about that. So, just so you understand, this site is probably, you'd have to take Beeden Road, probably the closest way to get there would be Beeden Road, and then pick up Reed Road and come along. So you're talking about, not by how the crow flies, but you're looking on, by driving, probably about a mile. Let's say 3/4 of a mile. Did you take that into consideration?
So we did contact, when we first did the study, and the way we do every traffic study is, it's called our no-build scenario. So we have our existing conditions, which is the counts that we went out and took. And then the next is that no-build scenario. So it's a future scenario that takes into account other developments in the area, and also applies a generic growth rate to the volumes to account for any developments that may happen prior to this development happening. So it grows those volumes, and that gives us kind of our base for comparison for including kind of site-generated trips. So I guess that was a long-winded answer of saying, yes, we take into account projects in the area if when we reach out to the town, they tell us to include that project.
Okay. Can I say one thing? Sure. With all due respect, Mr. Maderas, I don't agree with your premise that we can't stop this. I think that I would love to see the state come in and tell us that we're putting our water supply in danger, and that's okay, or that our sewage system can't handle this development, and for them to say that's okay. Because I think we as people from Dartmouth need to stand up for Dartmouth.
Thank you. Agree. And I hope I'm wrong about that, really, I truly do, but I just don't see it. It's a state mandate, and that's where, basically, we sit here most of the time. The first hour that we were here, we were dealing with variances and with special permits, that's what we deal with. But basically, because of the fact that 40B exists, they put that all aside. All the master plan that we put together, all that planning, all of the grief that we deal with as a board to promote a certain type of development within a certain parts of our town, it's emasculated by 40B. I hope you're right, sir. Come on up.
Jack Lyons, Strawberry Lane, just to follow up to a comment you made. As far as no off-site parking, is there anything we need to do to get that written into the regulations for something like this?
So basically, at some point, if they continue with this and we get to a point where we need to approve it, we will be putting together a decision, and it's part of the comprehensive permit, and there'll be a litany of conditions and waivers for the project. I'll defer to her. She can provide a better explanation, because it's very likely she's going to be drafting it in conjunction with their attorney as to what conditions we're going to be placing on here. And there may be some pushback as to some of the conditions, but that's one that I've noted.
All right, great.
And if there's anything else, we've got more time to talk about them, But there will be more hearings, and if they make sense, then we have to we can put them in place.
Second question I have now for a few comments that were made about a shuttle to UMass Dartmouth. One proposal that was in play maybe 5-10 years ago was a company from Pennsylvania wanting to come in and build off-campus housing within that site. And that got shut down. Are there any proposals, any regulations, anything in this to prevent this from turning into an off-campus housing unit or morphing into an off-campus housing unit? I live adjacent to the university. Wintertime, I don't have a problem because the windows are closed. Summer, fall, it's Party City. I mean, all of you who went to college, you know what a bunch of unsupervised adolescents are going to do in a situation like this. Is there anything the town can do to prevent this from becoming an off-campus housing site?
I'm going to defer to her. So, by the way, this is counsel, Susan Murphy, who's been appointed to us to assist us through this process. And she provides us legal counsel, and she also, there are times that there are questions, I don't know how this works. So we're here to basically listen to her, follow her guidance, and I'm sure that she can provide some sort of explanation to what you're saying.
So I'm gonna back into my answer, if that's okay. So this is a comprehensive permit under Chapter 40B, as we've all been discussing, to build a certain number of units. Under that statute, they're required to maintain in perpetuity, or the board will require that they maintain in perpetuity 25% of the units for affordable housing. There's all sorts of parameters and regulations that govern how people get chosen to live in those units. So we know that there will be controls around who lives in the 25% affordable units. The town cannot tell them who they can or cannot rent to for the other 75% of the units. So it is possible that students could elect to rent these units. It will be the discretion of the owner to decide who they choose to rent to. So maybe is the answer.
Basically.
Maybe it will be, but it's not the UMass Dartmouth that's owning this project, at least in this point in time. So the private owner chooses who their tenants will be.
All right. And I guess my last point, I hope, I don't know, probably not though. As this is what, the fourth 40B to come in within the last year?
No, it's the third one in the last year.
When's the last time an inventory was done on affordable housing in the town, as far as making our percentage?
We've done that.
When's the last time that was done, and where are we at now with the proposals for all of these new sites?
Right, so the town is, and I had the exact number, I believe it's
7.87%,
Almost
is it?
8%.
Right.
But when was that 8%?
So that is updated periodically. So what happens is the town has to periodically submit forms to the state, and then the state actually maintains the formal inventory for every community in the state. And every time a new unit is created, the town will put together what's called a unit application, and they submit it to the state. The state says, yes, this qualifies, and they put it on the inventory. My understanding from speaking to the town administrator's office, since I've become involved last August, is that there may be a small handful of applications that are waiting to go in, but it's only a few units. None of the other projects that are pending right now, even the preserve that was approved a number of years ago, so as soon as the board approves a project and the permit is issued, those units will count. But they only count if a building permit is issued within a year. And then if a C of O, a certificate of occupancy, is not issued within a certain period of time, they fall off. So that's what happened with the preserve. It was approved, it was on your inventory, but the developer was delayed. So none of those units are counting right now. They just received a certificate of occupancy for a small number of units. And so the town can then request that small number, but it's only incremental because they're only doing one small building at a time. So if, if or when any of these pending 3 are approved, and then they get submitted to the state, then, particularly if all 3 of them are approved in the next however many months, there's going to be a huge jump on the inventory, and that will stay in put, provided that the projects proceed in a timely manner. So that's how the inventory works, and I think the town's pretty much on top of where they are right now.
Because it just seems that none of these projects would be proposed in the first place if it wasn't 40B. None of these developers would be taking on Old Westport Road, I just speak for that, if it wasn't a 40B site.
Oh, better yet, sir, as a zoning board, we wouldn't be able to give them a variance for a
Exactly. I mean, the comment
multifamily
was
project
made.
in a single residence B zoning district. It's just not doable with us. It'd have to go before town meeting.
Yeah, as the comment was made by the traffic person here, that the parking is not, this isn't zoned for this type of building, so it's not appropriate to put it at 2 vehicles per unit. Why not? There are always if there are 2 adults in a building apartment, there are 2 cars for that apartment. If there are 3 adults, there are 3 cars for that apartment. And we all know that you're short on parking. Where are people going to go? They're not going to go park at the mall and walk over or have somebody pick them up and drive them to their apartment. They're going to end up in the neighborhood. Well, there isn't a lot of neighborhood. You got Blossom Court, Lucy Little Road, Old Westport Road. None of it can handle any on-street parking. Right there, it should be shut down, and it's just ridiculous, and it wouldn't be going on if it weren't for 40B. And going back to Mr. De Silva's comment, we as a town need to stand up to this type of stuff because this is our water. I believe about 40% of the town water comes out of those 2 wells, maybe even a little bit more.
I don't know if they're in operation.
Well, when they're in operation.
I don't know if they've been in operation for a while.
Within a mile, there's 3 major town wells.
Well, we have the director from DPW here. He can probably speak as to which ones.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I don't think there's any questions at that point, but obviously the 2 points that certainly have sparked something with me are no parking signs
Right.
potentially, and we're going to consider about the 2 units, 2 cars per unit, 2 spaces, 2 parking spaces per unit. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the issue of traffic? Come on up, ma'am.
Carol Cabral from Lucy Little Road. Just a comment, not a question. When you were talking, this gentleman was talking about potentially having a shuttle bus. I got to tell you, I don't think people are going to want to take a shuttle. If you are working at UMass Dartmouth right down the street, nobody's going to want to wait and, oh, the shuttle's going to come at this time. Let me wait a little while. We're all in a hurry today. You're going to go do your grocery shopping. You're not going to wait for the shuttle. You're going to take your car. You're not going to jump on the shuttle. Maybe some people will, but the majority of people are not going to jump on the shuttle to go to Stop and Shop or to go to their job that's a mile down the street. That's just my opinion.
Well, I tend to agree with you. It's not a way of life that people who live in a community like ours are willing to adopt. If it's a big city, yeah, I believe that that's more likely
Right.
an option. I tend to agree with you.
Just my,
All right, anyone else? Oh, come on up, ma'am. We're going to take a short recess in a little bit. I got to take a bathroom break.
It's Virginia Louise. I'm at 5 Strawberry Lane. And the question I have is with regards to Lucy Little. The last time we met, I believe I spoke to the peer reviewer about how far they went down on Lucy Little. What he told me, I believe, if I recall correctly, was they didn't go all the way down around into the S-curve or down into at the end of the road. And you know how Lucy Little is. I think anybody who travels on it knows that it's a difficult road to navigate. We've had 3 accidents this summer on that road on the S-curve. So what I'd like to know is, could we at least initiate the traffic study to really look at Lucy Little? You can go stand on Strawberry Lane and watch.
All right. He's going to explain the methodology. We'll have our expert answer that question for you. Is that your only question you
Well,
have?
yeah, I'd like to see them really look at that. I'm understanding what he's saying and what they're saying about your methodology. I don't think they went down the road. You can ask him.
Absolutely. Let's see this gentleman, what he's going to tell us about that.
Hi, when we were here last time was when we presented the findings from our first peer review, which was the end of October. So since that time, we had presented our peer review letter, and the applicant has provided responses to that peer review letter that did include methodology and traffic counts at Lucy Little Road, which were not previously indicated at the time that we spoke regarding that. So part of our recommendations in our peer review letter said that the safety along Lucy Little Road should be included as part of the assessment in the overall safety plan that is outlined as part of this project. And that safety should be coordinated with the town and the town's DPW to make sure that any safety measures that need to be implemented along Lucy Little Road should be included. In other words, we're not confining our recommendations to just Old Westport Road or Old Westport Road at Lucy Little, which were the basis for a lot of our traffic data recommendations. However, our recommendations with regards to traffic safety included Lucy Little Road, including signing, striping, having the applicant review the pavement condition and things like that. We also recommended that the applicant adjust their trip distribution percentage to include some methodology to acknowledge that at least some traffic to and from the site would be using Lucy Little Road, which was not previously illustrated in the applicant's original traffic study. So it's our standing that the applicant has provided safeguards that Lucy Little Road will be examined as part of the safety plan for this project.
And has he submitted to you what those safeguards would be?
To this point, we left it general as to they would be coordinated with the town. If there's issues with particular curves or pavement markings or particular pavement patches that maybe needed to be repaired or something like that, we leave that to the town's discretion, that the applicant work directly with the town in case there's something that the town is aware of that they want us to fix that was not included as part of our initial study area.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so this would be a good time. I think when we get back, and does anyone else have any questions? This is not over. We still got the next person to come forward to talk to us about civil. Come on up.
Danielle Charbonneau, Lucy Little Road. I know we've talked about adding signage for no parking. I would like to point out that Lucy Little doesn't have any speed limit signs whatsoever on it, and maybe that could be added for these people who are going to be new. As someone who lives on the S-curve, that's quite a debacle. We've lost a telephone pole 3 times, was it, for the locals this year, so.
Okay, I understand the concern. Who at the town are they going to be speaking with about the traffic situation? Is it DPW?
Normally, it would be the DPW, yes.
Fair enough. Thank you. All right, so at this time, we're going to take a short recess. I guess we're going to change. Individuals are going to come before us, and we'll move on to civil and stormwater. We're moving on to the next expert to come forward and present his case.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Okay, come on up.
Phil Maderas, Blossom Court. So I just have a question. That 156 units, correct?
Yeah.
How many one-bedroom units, how many two-bedroom units, and how many three-bedroom units are going to be in there? So that one, okay, because the question that I have is, are they going to be deeded parking spots? So those 256 spots, is that just for the condo people? Or is that for guest parking as well?
Yes, parking, okay.
So, let's come forward with, that's you, if you could go up to the podium.
No, it's him.
And that would be with him?
Yeah, so
Okay.
he maybe, that might
Oh,
be
that's
a
right,
good
that's
question
right.
for when he's done.
So, exactly. I thought you were going to ask a question about traffic.
It's the same thing, it's traffic, because now the traffic is if it's,
Two parts. So, because we're going to do this, I'll have you, we'll ask those questions first when he's done.
because the
okay?
question I had is, it's going to be a traffic when they're out parking on Old Westport Road and they're blocking the
But I
bike
think
lane.
we already kind of walked that up by basically putting signage
No
on the
parking.
roadway with no parking.
Signage ain't going to work.
Well, it can be enforced. It can definitely be enforced.
Who's going to enforce it? Just like the cops that enforce it on Chase Road and Fons Corner next to the mall? When people are blocking traffic, you're sitting there through three sets of lights?
An argument about it.
I know, I'm just saying.
Well, maybe we'll make money with tickets.
Okay, that's not going to happen. You and I both know that.
If you can move on, sir.
Just to introduce myself again, Damian Dimitri, Conoco Engineers and Scientists. I'm the site civil engineer for the project, the development, site grade, drainage, grading, are the components that I'm in the site layout, in which I'm in charge of. As kind of previously discussed, the project 16,500 square foot apartment buildings, about 3-story residential units, with an amenities building shown here. These are the 4 units right here on the plans. A clubhouse building, as I already quoted, associated parking in and along throughout the development along the sides of the buildings. And for the property, there's, 152 units total. There's a breakdown of roughly 4 3-bedroom units per building, 19 2-bedroom, 16 1-bedroom.
Hold on, you're going too fast for me. Hold on.
I apologize, and those numbers are, in flux of how it goes. That
So
is
let's
the
start
current
with how many
architectural.
3-bedroom?
As I understand it, 4 3-bedroom.
43?
4.
Oh, 4 3-bedroom units. How many 2-bedroom?
2-bedroom, 19. So it's, again, I feel that's off because my mouth comes out to 39.
2-bedroom units.
And 16 1-bedroom. There might be one off there as the counts I'm making up are coming to 39. Again, the architecturals are, being worked out, but the unit count will remain as previously.
Times 4?
Per building.
That's per building, yes,
Yeah, per
yes,
building.
yes.
So if you want to get the actual math, you multiply it by
4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So those are the unit for that. For the site, a lot of this is already presented. I'm not going to go into too much depth on the layout. It can be seen there. There was a lot of back and forth with Niche, or not a lot of back and forth yet. There was a lot of comments from Niche, mostly requests for clarification, nothing that came from us as we saw as a major concern, adding a little bit clarity to the design, but for components that have already been designed. And, again, Niche can come up and have conversation for their review. I won't get into it too much. But the system, the drainage will be catch basins throughout the site into a manhole systems, an underground drainage system, which will connect to one of these 3 underground infiltration unit systems. They're big underground half-shoe, moon-shaped empty chamber for volume. Water will be stored in there, infiltrated, treated by the soil, treated by the catch basins that have hoods, manholes. All of this falls under the stormwater standards and the designs of that. In addition, there's 2 open-air infiltration basins along the edge of the project. Again, that has been reviewed by Niche. Comments came. We will be responding to those comments at a later date with the revised set of plans. So that's a generic of the site overview plans. I'm just going to jump into responses on the parking. That's obviously a higher concern. Again, we find the parking is adequate at the site. 1.75 ratio For the projects, per the ITE manual, all of that is relative to what we have seen in these types of projects. We're confident that that is adequate. Even if it is two cars per unit, not every person is at the facility at a time. People work at different points of the day, people have those things. Again, the calculations were based off of manuals, things to that extent. That being said, with an understanding of the concern and those things, currently parking on the site is come and go as you please. There's a free and open parking to those who are in the residential units. What we can do is after the 6-month review, we could have a condition that in that 6-month review, if there is a parking concern, if there is overflow parking, if there is something to that, then we can set restrictions on the units. We've done that on other projects. We haven't actually done it on other projects because it's never a problem, but it is something that we've offered for other projects that say you have a 3-bedroom unit, you're restricted to 2 spaces. You have a 1-bedroom unit, you're restricted to 1 space. Right, and then that was away from where the 6-month review will be helpful in resolving that issue, and that could be something that could be brought up as a condition, or again, just part of the review. So that is a solution if that ever does become a problem. So that is the parking there. Other comments that have came up during this meeting: parking west of not parking. I apologize. A sidewalk west of the property is not proposed. There is no existing sidewalk in that area. It would be a sidewalk away from the school building and into a empty non-sidewalk portion of this. There's also not a sidewalk from Lucy, can't see it on the sheet. Lucy Lane in this direction in its entirety as well. So again, sidewalk, we're proposing from the site entrance towards Dartmouth University or college. Let's see if we can get a cleaner plan here. Here we go. So this would be the sidewalk that's hatching right here, the proposed sidewalk. Garbage collection was also brought up. The garbage will be collected by a waste management firm. Again, our applicant has worked with many firms before. They will be a licensed hauler. They will pick up, deliver, and coordinate with the DPW the best days for that. Typically, it's once per week. It will be into the garbage, large garbage facilities throughout the site.
So there are dumpster locations?
There are dumpster locations throughout the site, yes.
Okay.
So those will be typically picked up once per week, and a waste management firm will be handling that in, hauling and dumping it in a legal manner.
I have one other question, and it kind of stems from what Mr. Maderis was saying. Of these units, what is the anticipation? Are these going to be sold off as condo units, or are they going to be just managed as apartment units?
From my understanding, it's managed as apartment units.
So one common owner, property management company, and rental units.
From my understanding, yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
So those were 3 major topics that were brought up here. Second, the buses and amenities for children throughout the site. We do have 2 large open amenities areas, just open, the landscaping plans, there's fire pits, there's other open areas on either side of the amenity building. In addition, again, buses, we did originally perceive that they would be, allowed into the property. That has come up that is not allowed. We would likely be amenable if it is a traffic, we'd have worked with the traffic engineers to understand how a bus stop along the frontage of the property would affect traffic in that area. But, there is adequate space here to add a waiting area for students and or other transportation services at that moment. So, again, the applicant is amenable to installing one of those if that is how the board would like us to proceed. Again, it's the 2 sides of the coin, right? Safety, an area for bus stopping, is a transportation service, something that the town wants in that area. So then, no parking signage along Old Westport Road and Lucy Little. Applicant would be amenable to, that being a condition and those being installed along the property. It's not a major concern. If that alleviates some of the town's concerns there, they would be amenable to something to that. And then, okay, so those were the notes that I did have for concerns that came up during the traffic. But I will open it up to the board for questions or anything else that may be a concern.
Who's our consultant on this?
So Mark Gabriel is unavailable today, but he has sent his associate. Okay.
Hi, my name is Sandy Brock. I'm a registered professional engineer in Massachusetts and other places. I happen to have, just to understand what my role has been on this particular project, I have done a lot of 40B reviews over my career. I actually helped Mark, and I did a QC on the actual peer review letter. So I'm familiar with the plans. I'm also familiar with the letter. So what I was going to do is give an update of where we are at this particular time. And I think the applicant has already outlined some of these things, is that we did an initial peer review letter, that 17-page review letter that you've all seen, that has gone to the applicant. The applicant has reviewed it. We had a meeting on the 14th of January to kind of go over their questions on those particular comments that they had, comments on or questions on. So we went through that, and just to give him some of our insight of why we brought up those particular ones. If you're interested, I'm happy to go which ones that we talked about. And then after that is basically we're now waiting for the updated review plans, updated calculations, and obviously once we get that information along with their responses to our original comments, we'll be updating our response letter. Happy to go through the letter. I'm sure Mark has gone over it in generality, or what we discussed at that meeting, happy to get into details. And obviously, if there's any questions, happy to answer those.
Thank you. All right, so at this point in time, is there something you'd like
Yeah,
to add?
I just, unless I missed it, I don't know if there was a timing.
Talk a little louder.
I'm sorry. I don't know, I apologize if I missed it, but I don't know, is there a timing for when that's expected, the revised plans?
We're working on it. Currently, we're hoping to submit early February to get that in.
Right. So now that you've heard a little bit more about the project, they're going to make some changes from what they're telling us. Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions? I saw him first. You'll be next, sir.
Joseph Louise, 5 Strawberry Lane. To the board.
Sorry, I didn't get the name.
Joseph Louise, 5 Strawberry Lane.
Thank you.
Based on what was just said here with regards to the mitigation of groundwater at the site, it was mentioned that cisterns would be underground, infusing the water back into the ground off of the runoff areas. Is there any thought of the quality of that water that's going to be into those cisterns, that's going to filter back into the ground, based on all of this traffic, all these cars that are going to be parked there? And I'm sure they're all going to be new cars that don't leak any oil or anything like that, or gas. So I was kind of concerned about that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think our expert can speak to that.
Absolutely. It has to meet state requirements of the Stormwater Manual. Part of the Stormwater Manual is a percentage of what they call TSS, which is total suspended solid removal. The theory behind that is that what you're talking about, potential pollutants from vehicles and so forth, actually attached to particles. And the whole idea is, prior to the water going into these systems that go directly into the soil and into the ground, they go through a series of water quality devices. So there are various types, and basically they have to remove a certain percentage of total suspended solids in the effort to clean the water prior to going into the ground. And there is, when you look at a site like this, obviously your parking lots are your key pollutant sources. You also have roof runoff, which is relatively clean. Of course, nothing's clean because it falls from the sky. You have pollutants in the sky. So there is basically a standard that they need to follow as far as the stormwater regulations in Massachusetts. And at this point, they're following it, and obviously that is something that we're checking on. So hopefully that answers the question.
All right. Are there different systems to effectuate that?
Yes, and I'll let the applicant go through the series of different types of systems that they have on the site. I looked through them, but I'm sure he has a better sense of what they are. Happy to give you any kind of comments and how they work. There's a various number of either, nature-based systems, which is a filtering system. There's also structures that create a vortex that settle out and create a velocity to zero, so sediment settles out. That's another way of doing it. One thing I will add before he kind of goes through what those structures are, they do need to be maintained, and part of the conditions will be that they have to maintain those systems. It is a private system. I would also recommend that as a condition is that the ultimate owner of it has to submit information to the DPW that inspection and actual maintenance is actually occurring every year. It's all required under different requirements in the state and federal government and so forth, so that's something reasonable to ask the
We do that
applicant.
already in projects within the Aquifer District.
Yes.
We have them put together maintenance plans.
Yeah, in an aquifer, you would actually have a higher level of TSS removal. It's actually, the other part of that, as far as depending upon where you are, is how much you have to treat. So it's the way the stormwater manual works is sometimes you have to treat the first half inch, other times you have to treat the first inch. It makes a difference in the size of these structures or the systems. So it's, if in an aquifer area, it's usually a minimum of 1 inch, and there's also some other potential requirements of what you can actually have for uses in those areas.
Okay. Thank you. Come on up, sir.
Jim Costa, for Old Westport Road. I have 4 questions, I think, here. Will it be an on-site manager? Will it be on-site security? Will the garbage times not interrupt people sleeping? Will they go with the town quiet times, 7 to 10 or something? And then on the catch basin, I have some information from the Mass DEP hazardous waste. That's my source for this information. Like in gasoline, there's a chemical called MTBE. It's an additive. Like perchlorate in fireworks, it travels thousands of feet underground. This is a Zone 2 aquifer. We have wells on both sides. I'm concerned about the MTBE in gasoline, the additive. I can drop you that you can look at this.
Sure.
Also talking about the catch basins inside this area. Apparently there's a problem at one time with maybe, I had some family that grew up in the city, and in the projects, when you're going to change your oil, you pull over the catch basin, pull the plug. Apparently this was a problem in Westport too, because the town of Westport set up their catch basins with signs, no dumping. And because of this area is a Zone 2 aquifer, the town used to have signs placed in front of it that were posting that please protect our water supply, but somebody pulled them out in front of that sand pit. So that being said, this is such a sensitive area for our drinking water. We have well fields on both sides, and you're going to put catch basin water in the ground? Doesn't make sense to me. Those are my questions.
Okay. Can you provide some explanation to that? I'm not expecting you to answer this, but.
Okay. To the treatment system?
The treatment system.
Okay, all right, yeah, so The treatment system works as previously explained. It's requirements under the Mass DEP stormwater standards. The system is called the treatment train, in which a pre-treatment requirement is placed on the stormwater runoff prior to being infiltrated into the ground. And the infiltration itself is part of the treatment. So how it initially starts is the actual catch basins, which I show the detail here, are equipped with a deep sump. So again, a location for sediment and particles and sinking material to fall to the bottom, which, as explained, captures some of the pollutants. Additionally, there is a hooded outlet pipe, so similar to how a septic system works, or anyone with that knowledge, right? Things that float will remain floating at top. The hood enters deeper into the water, depth of a foot or so, and floatables like gases, oils, even debris, leaves, anything like that will float and stay on top, right? So the water that comes out of the catch basin itself is treated at that, and that's the pre-treatment device. That is it's considered given 25% credit. From the total credit, we get to 80%, but that 25% is actually wiped out in the later version, in how the train goes, right, to what we go to, yeah. So that's the first line of treatment. It's not the classic catch basins that you may have seen in historical places. These are new. They're required under the stormwater standards. They are designed by this. This will be part of the conditions. It is in the plan set, so is part of the proposed design. So then we continue. I'll go back to the drainage system. This actually shows it a little more cleanly here. So from the catch basins, it goes into the underground infiltration chamber. So like these little circles, and then the connection, that's the drainage pipe network. That then enters into the other components of the treatment train. So catch basins will then enter into the, a manhole through the drainage piping, and then the first chamber within the infiltration rows is lined with a filter fabric that collects additional pollutants out of the stormwater prior to then being dispersed to the rest of the chamber system. So that chamber itself is completely wrapped in a filter fabric. That filter fabric then collects sediment, collects all of that within that area, and actually makes it easier to clean the system because it is more contained. So from then it percolates through the rest of the system into the underground chamber system. There's 4 feet of separation from the bottom of our system to groundwater. So with that separation, again, similar to septic systems, this is all per Master Stormwater Standards, and the soil acts as a removal of pollutants. That is a filter itself. It's very much how water is treated in many, classically through this. So these systems, tried and true, have been part of, engineering knowledge for a long period of time. That is the way that our systems for those underground chambers work. For the exterior infiltration basins, again, we have the catch basins to a manhole, and rather than the underground filter fabric that is wrapped around the chamber, it enters into a sediment forebay, which is an open air forebay that is a little bit higher in the air, and that's where initial sediment and pollutants are discharged into, collected and maintained in that area before they're then discharged into the infiltration basin, which again, the same treatment occurs as the underground. The treatment occurs in the soil, and how water is filtered in these classic engineering practices that have occurred for an extended period of time. So that, this is all per stormwater standards. The Zone 2 has an extra requirement of a 44% pre-treatment. The infiltration basins get 80% after pre-treatment. Sorry if I'm saying this a little convoluted. So the catch basin is a pre-treatment device. The infiltration chamber fabric wrapping of the initial chamber is a pre-treatment device. Both of those are required, meet the 44% TSS removal requirement prior to the infiltration chamber and the infiltration basin discharging that water or recharging that water into ground. We want to recharge the water into ground because we're trying to compensate for the impervious area where water is separated. So it's a balance. It's made up of these practices that are engineering standards. We meet all the Mass Stormwater Standard requirements. It is being peer reviewed. I think I gave enough information. Happy to clarify anything that might be misunderstood.
I think I get it. Do you want to ask another question?
Yes, could you please put that up, your first diagram there of all the different stages?
Are you talking about the
the-
details?
Manholes.
The manholes, yeah.
The details.
All right, I've seen, the town has this, I believe, on Old Westport Road. I've watched them pump that out. It fills up with sand down here. Once it fills up with sand, all the water and nip bottles and all that stuff flow out. So that's a failure right there. So you're going to catch it over here with the screen fabric?
So in regards to your concern with the operation and maintenance of the catch basins and sediment building up in those and floating, as a privately owned site, we have an operation and maintenance plan that is part of the stormwater report that is in conjunction with the stormwater standards. That requires that the catch basins are inspected and maintained on a, quarterly and yearly basis for the amount of sediment that goes in them. So it's a 4-foot sump. The sediment is supposed to be measured on a periodic basis, I believe quarterly, to the point where it hits 18 inches. And then once it hits 18 inches, it's inspected, it's required to be pumped down. So again, maybe the town structures that you have witnessed have had that issue. This is a privately owned site that will have a operation and maintenance plan that they're required to follow.
Thank you.
And finally, he hasn't answered the question how he's going to filter out the gasoline additive that's water soluble.
Well, you're making hold on. I think you're assuming that exists in the water.
No, it doesn't exist. It's in gasoline. So if it were to gasoline were to spill.
It's MTBE, right? It's MTBE, so you're assuming it's on site, that there's MTBE on the site.
Yeah, if somebody's gasoline tank leaks.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. All right. Can you answer that question?
Good evening. I'm Brian Klingler. I'm the principal with Conoco Engineers and Scientists. I run the environmental group.
Just a little louder, because I can't
Sorry.
hear you.
I'm Brian Klingler. I'm the principal geologist with Conoco Engineers and Scientists, and I'm the LSP for the site. MBT is a historical problem. It was an octane enhancer added in the late 80s. It did have a problem with coat solvency. It moved very quickly in groundwater, but they've stopped using it, so it's no longer used in gasoline. It was outlawed. It was banned. So as a current issue with releases to that site or potential releases to the catch basin, it would not be one.
So that started when they started requiring unleaded gasoline.
Yeah, it was exactly. Lead was the issue in gasoline, and that was an octane enhancer they put in as a substitute to leaded gasoline.
And it's not there anymore.
Not there anymore. It's been banned.
Anything else? Yeah, no, that's the information I gave you just came down from the DEP website.
Oh, I'm sure they're concerned, because sometimes it's still in existence.
Yeah.
But it's not from any current use, based on what I'm understanding with them, is they're not putting it in gasoline as an additive anymore.
It hasn't been banned in Massachusetts. Other states have banned that chemical.
It's no longer added to gasoline, but it is a significant concern, obviously, as an environmental issue with large-scale releases, in particular the Cape. Otis Air Force has a huge MTBE problem that is acres in size, but currently it's not in gasoline. So from a microcosm of this site, MBT isn't a concern.
Because he wants me to understand that it's from cars that are parking on site that could leak fuel or leak oil, and that's not going to happen based on your understanding.
Correct, because MTBE, it's not in that gasoline.
We have our expert here. We're going to ask her.
And this is where I'm totally honest, that I say, I'm aware of a lot of, so a lot of these different, pollutants come up and so forth. That is not, I am not do things with 21E, and I do not, I am not an LSP. That's not quite in my field. I mean, I think it would be very easy to check. And that's something that we will do just to confirm it, but I don't want to say something that I'm not 100% sure. There's a lot of other things like phosphorus and other things that we have to deal with in the stormwater. I can go through that and what you can and cannot do. That is not the question.
You're here as an expert for stormwater for us.
Right.
He's here as a geologist explaining, and I guess he's going to talk to us about some of the environmental concerns.
Yeah, an LSP,
which we're going to segue into very
a licensed site professional, yes.
Great. Okay. All right, so we're getting short on time. I always promise my board that we'd be done by 8 o'clock. It's not going to happen tonight, but we're going to keep it short. So we're going to move it along now to some environmental concerns, because I'm sure people want to hear about that as well. Oh, Mr. Maderis, you had asked me a question before. Has that been answered by this gentleman?
For now, but for now.
Okay, good answer.
I still have, no, my question is, so it's, you're gonna review this, right? In 6 months, a year later, so what happens when they change that? So it's gonna be individually owned, or is it gonna be a complex?
The units?
Yes.
The unit, it's a complex apartment building.
Okay, so when they decide to switch that over,
Yep.
what are you gonna think about? What's your plan for, what's the plan after that?
Well, as units are then sold at that time, right, there's a turnover in apartment units, right? So
Yep.
if it is an issue with the parking at the time, right, we've seen that, which is not something the applicant is concerned with at the time, we can
course.
apply this deed or these restrictions to the apartment. So when someone goes to buy an apartment, it's, note you have one parking space, right? And that will be associated with the rental of that unit, right?
What's the total number of rooms, like bedrooms, let's just say?
So you have to, you have to direct the questions to me.
Sorry,
and
total
then-
number of bedrooms, I'm sorry.
So I guess you could do the math.
Yeah.
But if you multiply them by, excuse me?
156.
No, that's units. That's total
Units.
units.
You're right.
Because you have,
I can tell you have that now. How about you have that the next time, so you
Okay,
know how
'cause-
many, how many?
yeah, 'cause I
when you
get
say-
it.
Well, the total units is 156. You're saying how many total bedrooms? Is that what you're asking?
yeah, because the problem is you can have 3 bedrooms, 3 cars. So he's going by units, by parking spots, so
I understand what
154
you're
times
saying.
1.
However, most zoning bylaws usually go, they say a single-family
Per
home. It
unit.
doesn't say if it's an 8-bedroom home or a 2-bedroom home.
Oh, I get it, but the problem
It's
is-
2 parking spaces.
Yes, I understand
Okay.
that. But if
So we
cars don't
can't
fit in
change the we can't impose greater standards upon them.
No,
Than we
I get
otherwise
it.
would impose
I
on a
understand
single resident
completely.
district.
But
Okay.
the problem I have is this, they cannot park on Old Westport Road. If my driveway fits 2 cars, I park out in the street, right? In my cul-de-sac. My question
That's
is,
what you do now?
yes.
Okay.
So
you
my
park-
question
You park
is-
on Old Westport Road now?
No, I don't park I park in my street where I live on. I live off of Old Westport. I live on Blossom Court. So if guests come over, they park in the circle, in the cul-de-sac. Nobody parks out in Old Westport Road, because over there's a bike path. There's a bike lane. So my question to you is, what is their plans if there's 154 units and there's 400 bedrooms, that means there's potentially 400 cars. What is the plan that they have in place that's where those cars are gonna go? I don't care about units, I care about bedrooms. Because if you have a 3-bedroom unit, you have 3 cars potentially. If you have a 4-bedroom unit, you have 4 cars potentially. Their math, to me, doesn't add up right. So the concern that I have for safety, traffic, is where those cars are gonna go. In 6 months, when he leaves and this is all sold, they don't deal with it. The people are gonna deal with it. So the concern that I have is where those cars are gonna go. You got people that walk, you got people that ride bicycles. What's their plan for that?
One sec. About the bedroom situation, can you explain that, on what the analysis is with that? I don't believe that that's how these things are analyzed, but I'll hear it from you.
No, they are not analyzed on a unit, a bedroom count unit perspective. They're analyzed on unit or by the zoning bylaws, are typically the standard, again, single-family unit, 2 parking spots is the standard of how these things are typically analyzed. What I am saying in response to that, with your concern to the bedrooms, right? If we will go forward with the design as shown, we believe that a 1.75 ratio is adequate. If that is not, and there becomes a concern at the 6-month review of the traffic study, we will start limiting the part. So a 3-bedroom unit, even though there's 3 bedrooms, we can limit that unit to 2 parking spaces.
Oh, hold on. That's not how this works, right? Questions to me.
Yep. Okay, so what's the plan? So
No, let him finish. I'm gonna
Okay,
let
go
him
ahead.
finish.
So it's in the renter's agreement, in the owning of in the renter, when they sign their lease agreement, it is you are allotted these parking spaces. You are allotted 2 parking spaces. That is in the operation and maintenance of the facility. So that is how that would be enforced. There would be parking assignments, and there are things to that extent.
Of course, yeah, so they'll designate areas on deeded rights. So if you decide to buy a condo, they're gonna say this, you're deeded this is your spot. So my question is, out of those 256 spots, how many are designated guest spots and how many are gonna be designated to the people that are living in that condo? Because that's gonna change a lot. Because if a person buys 2 designated spots, you're not even including guest spots. So if somebody decides to come and visit these people, where are they gonna park?
So again, through the chair.
Where are they going to park? That's the question that I have. Because if you block Old Westport Road, there's another 340B going down on Hathaway Road. That's going to be coming up traffic next to the mall. So what's the plan with there? When cars are cutting through because of traffic and everything else?
Take the question first,
Yeah.
right?
You got me all
Mr. Chair, do you mind if I jump in
No,
at this
absolutely.
point? So I'm not a traffic engineer, but I can speak to, in addition to doing this job for over 30 years, I also spent 11 years on a planning board, so I've reviewed many plans, just so people understand my background. As the chair has noted, and I believe the consultants, there's frameworks for how parking requirements are determined. They're either determined by the zoning bylaw, which is done for residential, either on a per house or per unit type of basis, and it's not even and there are these professional like the ITE that have been mentioned. When you layer on the 40B on top of that, these are a lot of these questions that are being raised today. These are concerns that are personal to everyone in this community, as they rightly are. But there are also concerns that have been raised by residents in all communities that have faced 40Bs. And there is an extensive body of case law, decisions by courts and the Housing Appeals Committee that hears appeals of 40Bs that discuss what are the appropriate standards. And as the board moves forward and considers this decision and considers is there enough parking and those types of things, part of what my counsel is going to be in discussing with the board is what are the standards that they can apply. So I think that all of these are questions that people have, and they're reasonable questions. But at the same time, as a matter of law, the board has to look to either the zoning bylaw, which, as we've noted, doesn't have anything specific for multifamily housing, has to look at the industry standards, and has to look at what case law has said about what are those reasonable standards. So I feel like these are all understandable questions, but they're getting outside of what the board, like the board can't sit here and say, well, what if? I think the board's going to need to look at what the law provides and make decisions on that basis. But I defer to you, Mr. Chair, as to, we could, how much conversation, but I just wanted to provide context for the, everyone to understand.
Is the analysis. His analysis,
Right.
he's setting, and I get that.
Right.
As a layperson, that's an easy deduction to make, is these are the bedrooms, this is what you're gonna do.
Right.
But that's not the methodology that's applied to this.
Right, and the
that's
board's
not how it
not,
is in
and the
zoning.
board's not allowed to apply a methodology that's different than the professional standards. So that, from a matter of law. So that's just what the kind of other aspect of this that I just wanted to mention.
So what's the bylaw state for residential in this situation? Because this is obviously going to be an
Well, it's not
addendum.
this situation. It doesn't speak to this situation.
That's what I'm saying.
It says
So-
that in a single residence, in a
Yep.
single-family home, 2 parking spaces.
Okay, so what's in the situation with this?
Then the industry standards.
What's the industry standard on that? 2
They're
points?
saying it's 1.55. It could be as low as 1.55. They're saying they're at 1.75.
1.75.
They're not at 1.75. They're about 5 or 6 cars short, or lots
No,
short.
higher,
Well,
higher.
But that's not including the guest
it
spots.
was
That's including
273,
just for
and
condo,
they
for
got
the people there.
267.
They're above the 1.55.
Yeah, but they're not at the
They kind of
1.75.
said 1.75, but they kind of rounded up. They're probably more around 1.71 or something like that.
1.71.
Okay.
Is that including just the residential people? That's the question that I have. I'd like to know what's the parking spots. Maybe a future meeting, we can discuss that.
It's 267 parking spots that they're proposing right now.
Okay, so
right.
that's including guest spots and everybody?
Well, there's no designation for guest spots. If you look at the zoning bylaw, we don't have guest spots.
Well, they're going to have assigned deed spots. They're going to say either a one, a bedroom.
Maybe, but not in the beginning from what they're
That's
telling us.
my
And
point.
even if they
So-
do, that's something they're gonna have to self-control within themselves.
Yeah, but that's the question that I have. The concern that I have is what happens in 6 months if it's not adequate? They're going to come back
Yes,
and they're going to
they're
say, so where's the cars going to go? You're going to park in Old Lucy Little Road? You can't park in Old Westport. You're going to block Lucy Little Road, which is a narrow street as it is? I mean, signs don't work. With all due respect, they don't work. We all know that they don't work. They don't obey, you know.
I disagree, okay? I disagree that signs don't work.
Signs don't
Right?
work.
They're speed limit signs.
Of course they don't.
work.
They don't,
They
they fly
work.
right on that street all the time.
No, but listen, they work. That's what police are for. They have to enforce, if there's a requirement that you ride or you drive at a certain speed limit, that's what the police are for.
If they see you.
Right? Well, if they see you. Well, the thing is as a community, all you're gonna do is call the traffic commission from the police,
okay.
and they go out there,
I've
and
done
they
many
put, they
times.
put a unit out there.
I've done it many times. I'm a big rat, I don't care. But that's beside the point. But the concern that I have is these guys are going to do it based on a 1.55. They're going to, in 6 months, they're going to say it's done. They already made their money. Thing's done. Now the concern is we're stuck with it. And that's the concern that I'd like to have this
I
answered.
understand that that's a concern.
Yeah, like I
okay?
said,
I
my
understand
thing
it's a
is this.
concern, but I don't think that we can, as a board, address it to the extent that you want it addressed.
No, but the point I'm saying, I'd like to know in writing. So this way, if there is an issue down the road, I want to know who I'm going to sue if, God forbid, there's an accident and I get hurt with this.
Well, I'm not here to advise you how to handle that.
Well, I want it in writing because I want to know who I'm going to go after.
We don't provide any opinions in writing, unfortunately. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Come on up, sir. All right, we're going to be moving on to environmental after you.
Joe Louise again, 5 Strawberry Lane. One question I had real quick, to what storm level standard are they applying the storm level levels? Is it the current one, or are they taking into account the progressive one that takes into climate changes?
So I'm sure you'll tell us that Mass DEP has certain regulations, and you're following and you're meeting within those regulations.
So our original design used TP40. It's a specific rainfall intensity. They gauge the storms and, everything from 1, 2, 3 year, the intensity of the rain increases with the frequency of the storm, right? A 100-year storm. It's not that it will occur every 100 years. It's that there's a 1% chance that it could occur at any point in time. But that's how it's written out. We currently went with TP40. The peer review has asked us to move to the Atlas 14 data, which is the newer model. We will do that in the storm, again, in our revised plans. We'll address that additional, we'll address that new progressive model amounts.
Reason why you suggested that more, what he's labeled as a progressive model?
TP40 is about 60 years old.
Okay.
So it's not commonly used. From my opinion, it's not engineering practice currently as what we're doing in Massachusetts. We've moved on to, and this is standard practice is a little bit hard to explain. I sit on my Concom. We do a lot of peer reviews. We do a lot of designs. A majority of companies have moved to the NOAA 14, which was put out about 7, 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. So that is, but to kind of get to the question, that is what's...
Excuse me, gentlemen, I can't hear her. All right? I'm hard of hearing, I can't hear, sorry.
So the NOAA 14 was put out several years ago, and that really updated the calculations or the rainfall data for the 2, 10, 100-year, things like that. I think the question by the applicant is talking about resilience in looking towards the future. So right now there's some updating going on by the federal government. Have no idea when that will be done on basically predictions. So based on what the current regulations are for the state of Massachusetts, the NOAA 14 is the direction they're going. There will be new stormwater regulations coming out at some point. That will change those numbers, but we don't have those regulations. And when we did the peer review, we looked at the current regulations and current standard practice.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to environmental.
One more.
Kevin Louise, 5 Strawberry Lane. I'd like to submit something into the formal record, but first I have 4 separate questions and mainly rhetorical. Who is the owner of Conoco Engineering and Scientists Incorporated? Who is the owner of Conoco Building LLC? Who is the owner of Sherbrooke Farms LLC? And what is their registered of business? And the last question, or two-pronged question that I have is regarding oversight. What is the process in which we select, the board selects oversight? And are there any investigations into the connections of those who are oversighting for peer review? And I'd like to submit these records for formal review.
formal review. So we'll table that for now. We'll address that at the next hearing, but we'll take a look at these collectively. You'll make copies for everyone, so we can take a look at it, and we'll see how to address it at the next meeting.
Let council look
All
at
right.
them.
Can you also,
Take a look at
the
it.
other items that you were given, Mr. Chair, by the public, would you mind giving those to Michelle as well, so she can make copies?
Oh, the pictures, yes.
Yeah, that pile right there.
Pass them down.
No, just give them to Michelle, so she can,
And you want to
no,
see these?
everything to Michelle, because she
Fair
just
enough.
needs them for the record.
Great.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to environmental, otherwise we're going to be here really, really late. So, the environmental expert, please, I know you already came forth on something else.
Yes, to reintroduce myself, I'm Brian Klingler. I'm the principal geologist with Conoco Engineers and Scientists.
You got to speak a little louder.
All right.
Closer to the microphone,
Or
please.
slower.
All right. I'm a principal, and I'm the licensed site professional for the site. As this is the first time we've been in front of the board on the environmental issues, we'd like to present a brief site history of the property, as well as the assessment history to date.
How long is this presentation going to be?
Super quick.
Okay.
But it's tough to talk about environmental issues without giving some background of what has occurred out there and sort of a brief history, if that's okay.
Sure.
I can summarize very quickly. We have two recognized environmental conditions out of the property. One related to a fuel oil release, which is being addressed under the Bureau of Wayside Cleanup with DEP, and the second being a solid waste issue related to concrete dumping on the property, which is being addressed with the Solid Waste Division of the Department of Environmental Protection.
So there are two separate issues that exist on the property?
Correct.
All right.
My name is Mark Brochu, project manager with Conoco Engineers and Scientists, working on this environmental cleanup project, and I'll be speaking specifically to the documented release of petroleum at the site related to former underground tanks on the property. Yeah. Very much.
Should just be able to scroll through as you need to.
So a lot of this information was recently presented at a public involvement plan meeting that was held in December. This is basically the presentation that we provided then. I'll try to move a little bit quickly through it. This slide just shows some of the history of the site, gravel mining. This history dates back to the early 1900s. Concrete production. There was some solid waste disposal on the property for extended period of time from the 30s through the early 2000s. And there's various solid waste that has been placed on the property that Brian will be speaking to specifically. But I'm going to be speaking specifically to the documented release of petroleum, as I mentioned. This plan here, I know it's a little tough to see, but there were a number of tanks on this property at one time, and they were removed. I think I have a slide for this. Yeah, so there were tanks removed in 1992, 2019, and there were a number of tanks removed in 2018 as well. So currently, there are no remaining underground or above ground storage tanks on the property. We are aware that the site is located within a drinking water source area. It's within a Zone 2 recharge area, a potentially productive aquifer, and there are, as was mentioned, several well fields in the immediate vicinity of the property. So this property is held to the most stringent Mass DEP groundwater cleanup standards, the GW1 standards, which are protective of drinking water. So back in around 2012, a previous environmental consultant for the previous owner, Prime Engineering, began environmental due diligence investigations of the property. They advanced a number of test borings and installed a number of monitoring wells across the property and performed a number of groundwater sampling events. They also oversaw in the 2018-2019 timeframe the removal of underground storage tanks, and specifically tanks that are located, let's skip back here. This is what we are calling Building 1. The tanks in question were located immediately behind Building 1. Those tanks were removed under the oversight of Prime Engineering. They identified a release of petroleum hydrocarbons to soil and groundwater at that particular location. Prime's investigations prior to that also focused on other areas where there were tanks located and various other potential environmental concerns that were identified on the property. This was one location where a release of, in this case, petroleum was found to have occurred. A little bit zoomed in here. This release area represents a relatively small portion of the property, centered on the location of the former underground tanks. If you can see my cursor, well, you can't.
Is the red area the release area?
That's the release source area. There are residual concentrations extending up behind Building 2 here, but basically the plume, the contaminant plume, is really isolated to this corner of the property containing Buildings 1 and 2. There have been a number of wells installed at the perimeter of the property to the north. Groundwater has been shown to flow to the north across this property, but there have also been wells installed along this, both the north, south, east, and west of this release area. No contamination has been identified at or approaching the property boundaries. So it is fairly well delineated, the release, and it's contained to this front, what I'll call the southwestern corner of the property. So going back to the initial investigations, there were a number of contaminants that that Prime had analyzed for. Volatile organic compounds, metals, petroleum hydrocarbons, and none of these compounds were detected above the Mass DEP risk-based standards in the soil samples. And there were concentrations of metals that were detected, but those would be consistent with naturally occurring background levels at that time. So they also didn't identify any significant field indications of contamination at their boring and well locations. And again, the one area where petroleum impact was encountered was this area behind Building 1. Having identified that release in 2019, Prime oversaw the removal of the tanks from that location, confirmed there was soil and groundwater impact related to those tanks. And then this was all done for the prior owner, and then things kind of ground to a halt for a while. Conoco came in initially in the 2023 timeframe and resumed some testing in the area. We took some updated groundwater samples from the area. We did identify contamination at this location. Sorry, I'm skipping around here, but this is, so that was the soil conditions. This is the groundwater conditions. There were really only 3 wells on the property, MW2, 102, and 103, that have to date exhibited any concentrations that are above the applicable groundwater or drinking water quality standards on the property. And then in 2017, really only one of those wells, MW102, which is a well located near the tanks in question, contained concentrations above the drinking water quality standards. No other metals or VOC compounds were detected above those standards. So Conoco resampled several of the wells that had previously exhibited concentrations. This is in 2023 now. And again, only that one well exhibited concentrations above the GW1 standards. I won't go through this in any great detail, but the concentrations identified in groundwater triggered a notification requirement to Mass DEP. Prime reported that condition to Mass DEP in May of 2017. And since then, the site has gone through this, this regulatory program under the Massachusetts Contingency Plan. Recently, Conoco submitted what's called a Phase 4 Comprehensive Response Action plan to DEP that lays out the proposed response actions to address the contamination in soil and groundwater at the location of the tank near Building 1. That plan includes several different approaches, combined approaches. We're proposing to excavate remaining contaminated soil at the location of those former tanks. It'll be a fairly deep excavation. The groundwater at this location is greater than 15 feet below grade. The point of the excavation is to remove any remaining source contaminated material that would potentially impact groundwater. A lot of the contamination in the in this type of environmental setting is held up in the soil pore space. So when you can remove that contaminated soil, it goes a long way to eliminating residual concentrations in the groundwater. Prior to backfilling that excavation, we're proposing to add remedial additives to the ground, in this case, persulfate and calcium peroxide. These are non-hazardous they result in non-hazardous remedial additive byproducts. These remedial additives will stimulate naturally occurring biological activity for further degradation of any remaining petroleum in groundwater. It's challenging to reach the GW1 standards. They're very low, as they should be for drinking water considerations. We feel that this approach provides an aggressive means of achieving those standards. There'll be an extensive amount of post-remediation monitoring. Wells will be sampled, and if wells were destroyed during the process of the remediation, they'll be replaced surrounding this area and extending down gradient, up gradient, and cross gradient. And those wells will be sampled both for the petroleum contaminants of concern and the remedial additives that we're adding to the ground. This is all pursuant to Massachusetts contingency plan regulations and response action performance standards. So our ultimate goal is to reduce any residual petroleum concentrations in soil and groundwater below the MCP standards to achieve a permanent solution with no conditions for this specific release. Brian, I'll let you speak to the...
I will be brief. As Mark had mentioned, there were solid waste concrete piles that have been discovered at the site. They're large in volume. And this fall, I walked the site with the Department of Environmental Protection, specifically the solid representatives of the Solid Waste Group and the Bureau of Air Quality. And the owners agreed to enter an administrative consent order following the cleanup of the petroleum release. An administrative consent order will be initiated between the development and the Bureau to work in concert to address the solid waste piles. The piles themselves consist primarily of concrete. There is some brick and asphalt in them. None to date have been painted concrete or whatnot, but that will be addressed as well. The specifics of it haven't been defined yet, but it will be in the near future, in 2026.
So when you say solid waste, it's not like we think of the landfill with people's trash.
No.
This is because of the fact that there's large chunks of concrete there, is that what it is? Or
Correct.
it's just-
The term is ABC, asphalt, brick, and concrete.
Okay.
But the proportionality of it is primarily concrete. So a number of receiving facilities on Commonwealth, because it's a recyclable material, will take asphalt, brick, and concrete. They'll crush it and they'll reuse it. And for sale, it's a structural fill below roadways and whatnot. So in this case, they brought the material on the site, but they never processed it.
How much material are we talking about?
Significant, probably. It's in the thousands of cubic yards. The piles are quite large.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair,
excuse me?
may I just
Oh, yeah,
ask him
I
a
just
couple
wanted-
of quick questions?
Yeah, I'd
Oh,
like
sure.
to make it, so actually, this is not really within our purview as part of this application, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
All right,
So.
if you could just provide an explanation for the audience as to what our role is with this particular
Right.
aspect and the concerns of the neighbors.
Right, so the reason why the applicant is here and providing the presentation is that there were a number of concerns that were raised by both members of the public, but also some of the town officials regarding kind of conditions on the property. Those were conveyed to Mass Mass Housing Finance Agency, which is what's called the subsidizing agency, which provided the site eligibility letter to this applicant. One of the requirements of their letter that allowed them to move forward with this application was that they should provide the town with an assessment of any required remediation related to the previous use of the site. So because there were questions both from town officials and from the public about what's gone on with the site, and those were expressed to Mass Housing thought it was reasonable for the board to get some information about that. However, under Chapter 40B, only local regulations are within the board's purview. In this case, everything related to environmental remediation is all under state law, and the board doesn't have any jurisdiction over anything that is a state law. They are required to fully comply with state laws, but the board doesn't have any jurisdiction to tell them what to do, not to do, et cetera, with respect to this, because they are the boards, anything that the town might locally have concerns about, at least as far as the cleanup goes, is all governed by state law.
So Mass DEP is basically the governing body when it
Yes.
comes to that. They got to meet their standards.
Yep.
If they require that they do more testing, they've got to do it. If they say that it's good enough, they can stop.
And so I did have a couple of questions related to that, if I went real quick.
Just to color that in a bit, it's a privatized system. I'm a licensed site professional, so I'm licensed to do the cleanup. They can audit my work, and they do audit my work. But I'm still the one who governs the cleanup, and we follow the regulations and must adhere to those regulations. We submit the report to them, and they keep it on file, and will review it and audit it. But they don't control what's done out here. They do on a solid waste perspective, but not under the Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup. That's a privatized system for LSPs, which I am and Mark is.
Right, but there are state regulations that
That we
he,
have to follow.
as a licensed professional, is required to follow.
Correct.
So I have a couple of questions. Is the administrative consent order, has that been issued already?
No.
Okay, so, and so that's forthcoming?
But
that you don't-
we've agreed that we would first address the petroleum release, and
Okay,
then
and the
we-
ACO is going to be on the solid waste?
Correct.
Piece of it? And then with respect to either, the, kind of, is it a, 21E, is that kind of what you're
Yeah,
under?
21E.
Or under the solid waste, do you anticipate an activity and use limitation of any kind? No, and no other type of restriction, conservation restriction, nothing else
Nothing else.
from, but just ongoing monitoring
Correct.
for a number of years?
Yeah,
After
yes.
the
If
cleanup.
groundwater, again, we're dealing with the GW1 standard, so if the
Yep.
concentrations come back perfectly clean, non-detect,
Okay.
you're looking at 3 or 4 quarters of groundwater sampling, but after that, it stops.
Okay, so nothing that would affect the use of the property for
No.
residential purposes? Okay, thank you.
All right. So at this point, we're going to be moving on for another date, and we got a deadline that council and we have to discuss. Be kind enough to come up to the podium. So I've been told that we have a deadline on this of February 23rd to close the hearing. Do we have a scheduled date with them, another scheduled date, or we don't have a scheduled date right now? So we're
The
not doing a
date,
scheduled
there's one date that the board has reserved on your calendars for a potential meeting. Is that right, Michelle? February 26th?
We have it every other.
Right.
every other
I think it
Thursday.
had been kind of maybe earmarked possibly, right, February 26th, but I don't know if that is happening. But, so there's the continuing to whatever the next date will be, but then there's the bigger question of an outside date. So we have two questions for the
First for
board.
me is the deadline date. That's what I
Okay,
want.
so
Let's
first,
talk about a deadline date.
how far out are we going to go? We don't have, the board doesn't have the revised plans yet. Also,
Folks, you can't be talking in the audience. I can't hear the lady.
so the plans are hoping to come in sometime early February, I believe. Yes. The civil engineer said those will need to then be reviewed by staff and peer review. Also, I'm not sure where things stand. I don't know if you have any updates as far as providing the water and wastewater information that was needed on the impact on the water supply, the water system, and the wastewater. Do you have a sense?
That's part of civil, yeah.
are you able to respond to that, or I don't know? Tim, I know Mr. Barber's here. I don't know if he's received any information yet. No. So there had been a request, even at the last hearing a while ago, that there be communication between the applicants, consultants, and DPW in order to get all the calculations on the water demand and also on the wastewater flow. I'm not an engineer, so I'm using
Right.
generic
I
terms.
believe the applicant had intended to meet with DPW, and there was an issue about them not wanting to meet without the consultant there, and we were trying to work that out.
Okay, so anyway, that's just something, no, that's all fine. Everyone just needs to
Okay.
talk to who they have to talk to. It's not a problem.
Yep.
We just need to factor that into timing.
Okay, yep.
So anyway, so with that in mind, how far out at this, and then once all the information is in, then there's the matter of the board having a meeting where they can discuss the waivers and walk through those with the applicant. And then either the board can close the hearing and then it will proceed and deal with the conditions, or can be done in a public hearing where the applicant has a chance and there can be back and forth. So we've just got to factor those things in. And I guess it's up, obviously I defer to the board as well, but a question of, do you want to pick a target date? And then as we get close to that date, evaluate where we are, or what makes the most sense?
I'm just looking for a deadline date.
We can look at something in May or June, perhaps, and then reassess when we get to that point.
Yeah, a deadline date in May for now would be great, because it gives us a lot of time to get the rest of the stuff in order. I guess you've got some work to do on your end. There's a meeting that needs to happen. Do we have a consultant that's going to do the peer review for us with regard to the wastewater impact?
Yes, I believe the information would be reviewed by DPW and Stantec.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So what do we got for, did we say May?
The only week I'm not available is the week of May 4th. I would not be available if the board would like me to be here.
How's May 7th? Oh, the whole week, you said. How about May 14th? It's a Thursday.
Sounds good.
So that would be, that's not the next hearing date, that's the deadline for the close of the hearing.
Let's start there, we can work backwards.
And then I believe that Ms. Vieira has the form, unless you have it there.
I don't have the
Attorney
form.
Ferguson. Okay. The form we can write in and have them sign it before they leave tonight? Okay, thank you.
So I'm sorry, what?
May 14th.
14th? Okay.
Are you around? Attorney Farrier, are you around May 14th? Okay, good. All right, so now what about the next meeting date?
This stuff.
So with respect to the next meeting date, because the plans are in the process of being revised, that's civil, and then your peer reviewer will need to review those. I understand it's a 17-page document at this point. They're going back and forth. I would say March something.
We got March 5th and we got March 12th. We can't do what?
No Alvin on.
Oh, that's right, you can't do it, that's right.
I'm not here on the
So
5th.
in the month of March and April, I can't do Thursdays, so we're gonna have to shift those to Mondays. How's March 9th or March 16th?
You would have back-to-back.
Yeah, no.
Mondays.
Excuse me?
You'll have back-to-back Mondays. We have.
9th,
That's
March
okay.
9th? March
Excuse me?
9th?
March 9th, yeah. Gentlemen, we'll have another 40B on March 2nd, and we'll have this one on March 9th, which is back-to-back. Is that all right?
March 9th.
Yes.
Board meeting in this room. Oh, that's right.
Okay.
16th.
How's the 16th? March 16th?
Oops,
Okay.
wait a minute.
16th works.
Attorney Farrier? March 16th. We'll see you then.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, we gotta make a motion.
We ready?
You go.
We have two motions. One is to continue, well, first one, I would say, on the extended hearing date, and then the second one, just to continue this hearing.
Are we talking 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock?
These are 6.
Right. Are we going to have a hearing at 5 o'clock? Michelle?
Might. It depends on whether it's too
Not
far
as-
ahead.
All right.
Some of them are too far ahead to know.
Okay.
First will be the, I'll make the motion to extend the deadline for the May, right?
For the close of hearing. For the-
I'm not closing the hearing yet.
No. You're extending the deadline for the close of
Right, that's
hearing.
the first motion.
That's the
what I
first
meant,
motion,
yeah.
yes.
And then we'll make the motion to
Yep,
continue.
yep.
I make a motion that we extend the deadline for the comprehensive permit ZCMP 25-2 to the May 14th, 2026.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it.
Okay, now I make a motion that we continue comprehensive permit ZCMP 25-2 to March 16th at 6 o'clock.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, the ayes have it. All right, you'll give me those dates, you'll send them over? All right. So that takes care of that, so we'll see you back in March, I take it? All right,
16th and
folks,
9.
thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, we're going to need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it.